1 minute after 9, we're going to open up our work session for December 17th, 2019. And if you please silence or shut off your cell phones and join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, additions and deletions for our agenda, please.
I have 2 additions today for action. Commercial lease with the 1R group and North State Recycling. And then we're deleting the social relationship policy and tabling that for another meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Board, do you have any other deletions or additions?
Nope, none for me.
All right, first up, we have a fire update. So I think Barry's going to take the lead and others will follow in. So welcome once again.
Thank you. So Barry Schulber, Interagency Fire Staff Officer, giving you the end of season fire report for 2019. As you all know, we give the preseason and the postseason meet. We've done so with Klamath County Commissioners, and now want to do so with you guys as well. Just to kind of summarize 2019 fire season, as far as wildfire, slightly below average. Probably one of our shortest fire seasons we've had in quite a while. We actually ended fire season in September, which we haven't done in a long time. And our energy release component, should give us an indication of how dry things are and whatnot, only hit average a couple times. And other than that, we were generally below average. So if you recall back to last winter, we had a good winter. We had a nice spring. We had good grass grow up. It stayed green for a long time. Generally speaking, our fires stayed pretty small. We did host the state's largest fire of the fire season on Hart Mountain, and I'll let Andrew and folks talk about that in just a little bit. But all in all, it was a very successful fire season. Just to look at a few of the statistics that I have here in front of you, we basically had 3 times where we had a lightning bus, and they were about June 12th and 13th, August 9th and 10th, and September 5th and 6th, and that accounted for about 75% of our wildfires on those 3 lightning bus times. Again, wildfire is causes the most starts that we have. We do get human-caused fires, and you can see we've provided the statistics from the last 3 fire seasons. So if you look at the page 2 there, where the box where it shows the total amount of lightning-caused fires, we're at 101 fires for 25,784 acres. You can see that the 1 fire there with Fish and Wildlife, though, on Poker was 23,400 acres, and that all happened in one shift, pretty much.
So on your agency, 981S, 982S.
981S is Klamath County, 982S is Lake District of the
Okay.
And I don't know if they're going to be here today or not. I haven't seen them. Just kind of go through some of this. You're welcome to bring up any questions you see. One of the things that already talked about, the occurrences, you can see, I don't have the pages, but you can see the ERC chart here, where the bright pink line there, the red line, and the light gray line was average. You can see we hit average just a few times during the fire season. Other than that, we were mostly below average, like I said. And And then we get into a lot of the stats, and one of the things that we're really proud of that we have is our seat base here in Lakeview at the airport, and our LTAC program that's out at Lakeview. Both those aviation resources are very valuable and help us put out a lot of fires here in Lake and Klamath County, South Central Oregon. So, just kind of gives you a breakdown of, like for instance, this first one here is tanker 820. This particular air tanker only pumped 13,290 gallons, or delivered that many gallons, and then it got sent to Ontario for the fire season. So then we took on tanker 832 and tanker 842. And you can see they had about 46 and 47,000 gallons respectively. A good majority of those assignments that they had were to California, to Modoc. Modoc had a busier fire season than we did. They had a couple of large fires that they got big early in the fire season, and we helped accommodate them quite a bit. So having the seat base here in Lakeview helps us, whether it's in California or in Oregon. It's been really good. I do want to talk a little bit about the seat bases and talk about the Paisley situation that we have up at Paisley. I got Chad Berger here as well. He's kind of my expert on this. He's our aviation officer for both Forest Service and BLM. I'll let you want to lead into it?
I can sure do it. Yeah. Again, Chad Berger, Unit Aviation Officer, Lakeview BLM, Fremont, Wyoming National Forest. So the base up at Paisley, you guys, I would imagine you know, but it's basically what we call a non-call base. We've got a 10,000 gallon water tank that's owned by the BLM and a pump in a well that's owned by the BLM. And then there's a 3,000 gallon retardant tank there that is actually owned by the retardant vendor, which is not, that's not uncommon. The retardant tank here in Lakeview is also owned by the vendor. It's just kind of how that contract is played out. Though one up at Paisley has always been kind of a, and I just learned this in October, November, just after the season, is the one in Paisley has always been kind of a handshake deal. Back in 2003, I think it was put in, maybe 2002, somewhere back in the early 2000s. And then the BLM, put in the well and the water tank to support it, but it's never really been on the contract. So that's one issue there. And now the vendor has kind of changed. It used to be Fozcheck, but that company has kind of evolved into a bigger conglomerate. So since it's not on the contract, there's one issue that they don't want to support it anymore. So that's kind of an issue. That is an issue. They don't want to deliver retardant there. They don't want to maintain the tank that is there because they don't have a mechanism to get paid. The other part with Paisley, and actually it's happening at Lakeview and Burns and Ontario, all the sea bases across, is we're being looked at a lot more closely as the retardant itself in the concentrate form is got high levels of chromium and cadmium. Maybe saying that one wrong, but heavy metals in it. And so in the concentrate form, it's a hazardous material in that form. When we dilute it down to put in the airplanes, then it's above or it's below threshold. With that being said, the BLM National Office is starting to look at stormwater pollution plans, containment, things like that. And what it comes down to is Paisley is just a tank sitting on the tarmac out there. There's some pretty basic secondary containment with some visqueen and railroad ties. And so basically between the state and the national office, they're looking at probably pulling that base, or not pulling the base, but pulling the retardant away from that base, keeping the water tank and the pump there in the well, just not having retardant on site, and basically the liability of a spill or something like that being a major issue, plus the vendor not wanting to support it. So the fact of the matter is we're looking to bring that down from what they call a Category 1 base, which is retardant on site, to a Category 2 base, which means we'll have the water and the ability to bring in mobile retardant plants or some sort of on-call type plant to produce retardant out of it. Operationally, Barry and I talked about it quite a bit, and even with some of the FMOs around the districts, something we like, but and it has helped us quite a bit. And like one-day events here. I mean, Withers Fire, everybody probably remembers the Withers Fire. We used it quite a bit, and that's the last time we used it though. So it hurts us a little bit, but I think if you look at the reality of it, it's 33 nautical miles from Paisley to Lakeview, about 18 minutes of flight time. So you double that, 40 minutes, turnaround time is what's going to hurt us a little bit. But the gist of it is, I think between the vendor not wanting to support it and the liability of the hazardous material out there, we're going to go ahead and make the footprint a little bit smaller and take the retardant out of there and have the ability to have a mobile retardant.
Is there a possibility of anyone considering building something there, building an infrastructure there to support that?
We've kind of dabbled in that, but the cost versus the use that we've used over the last 5 years is probably not feasible, at least for the BLM, because we're having to, with these stormwater pollution plans and things like that, we're having to put money into our other 2 retardant bases on the district, being Klamath and Lakeview. And so basically, they asked us to kind of prioritize, not at this time where we look at it, we have the money to develop a retention pond, or evaporation pond, or containment, and things like that.
I personally would encourage you to relook at that. It's just like in our private life, we pay for insurance. We don't necessarily want to use that insurance, but we pay for it. And I look at the Paisley Airport as an insurance policy. If you talk 40 minutes turnaround, you guys are the fire experts, but you get out there in that part of the world, 40 minutes can be a lot of time and everything. So I would encourage you to look back at that, work with our airport manager and everything, and see what we can do. Basically, I get what you're saying. The cost is quite a bit, but in insurance thought, what if and when it happens, having that right there would be nice to have, continue to have.
And we are retaining the footprint of being able to bring in the mobile retardant plant, which is not going to be as reactive as Paisley is in its current state. It'll be a 24 to 48 hour setup, but we will have that ability, and we will retain that ability too. But understood, this isn't something we really wanted to do by any means either. I mean, we understand it operationally. We've been ICs on fires and have used it and understand that.
Yeah, there probably is maybe possibly a little bit more to this, and I don't have an airport manager here or whatever, but when the county has a small airport like that, the more use, the more opportunities out there for the use of it. It gives us more opportunities to maybe look at grants and different things. So by that going away could have some impact that way. And I'm just speaking off the cuff. Don't know that for sure, but once again, I would encourage you to relook at it if you can.
We do plan to keep our lease, at Paisley Airport. Like I said, we've got the water and the well, and we have plans to keep that mobile option. Another option too is operationally is it's not necessarily one seaplane that's working. Can't guarantee it, but a lot of times between Vail, Burns, and Lakeview, we share the seaplanes. We can get up to 4, sometimes more seaplanes in the mix. When you do that, then things start working. Correct.
So I don't know if this makes any difference to you, but they're going to extend the runway at the Paisley Airport also. Yeah, and so we can take on bigger airplanes and aircraft. By the time they're done, it's only going to be about 100 feet shorter than the Lakeview runway.
And the runway length has been, for the planes we were using, and it hasn't been an issue. The runway length is defined the way it is right now.
How many seaplanes do you guys typically have?
We generally have 2 sitting here in Lakeview. A little bit of seasonality, like it shows here. We start with 1, and then as far as season develop more, they put 2 here. But again, it can change from year to year, depending on severity and things like that.
And we have had up to 3 a couple of years also. 2 to 3 is pretty standard for us, but
What do they hold? 850 gallons,
800
800 gallons. And they're flying faster than they built them. They built them better. So their times are good.
And that's kind of the evolution of the seed program over the years. It was originally set up, through the BLM to be a kind of a mobile quick strike deal where there was trailers and moving to different airports. And that was back when they were using round motor engines that were pretty slow, 120, 130 knots. the equipment's kind of outpaced that original model, and so now they're kind of going more to a standard tanker-based model, similar to the large one over. And that's based on the equipment's probably helping that, plus some of these environmental concerns.
Yeah, no, I just know that they really saved our bacon on the Anna fire. I was on that fire, and that was tremendous help in just being able to kind of head that fire off and steer it in the right direction. Great resource. Yeah, great resource.
We're very fortunate on the Anna fire to get every air tanker we wanted. That particular afternoon. Moving along, you can kind of see the Klamath Falls tanker-based statistics there. Again, when it says USFS other, majority of their return also. So, again, both Klamath and Lakeview are a good buy for Region 5 and the Northern California agencies for getting return. You can just kind of thumb through there if you have any questions or whatnot. Our Helitac group that's here, how many do we have on that crew? 17. And they spent a good portion of their summer in Alaska. Alaska had a big fire season this year for Alaska standards. They were off the chart and very busy. So this is a national resource, and they're stationed here. But when we're in our shoulder seasons, we like to let them go so that we're abiding by the national contract and being a good partner. When we do get busy here in South Central Oregon, we do tend to ask them back, and we generally get them because we accommodated either early in the fire season or late in the fire season. So it's been really good. We also have good leadership on our Helitac program. We have the ability to split the crew and bring in another Type 2 helicopter, staff it, and now all of a sudden we've got 2 instead of 1. So good things that keep evolving there. And we're very pleased that that continues to be an interagency resource where we have both Forest Service and BLM employees working together on one crew. That doesn't happen very often in very many places at all. So, something we work very hard at. I'll just finish up towards the back here. You can we'll talk just briefly about prescribed fire, and then I'll hand it over to Dustin and Andrew. Prescribed fire wise, if you think back to the previous year, fire season lasted in 2018. It lasted clear up through October, basically. It held into November. So the previous fall, we didn't get a whole lot of prescribed fire burning. But we had a good spring, got a lot of good work done. We got a lot of piles burnt with the snow that we had last winter. And then, as you've seen this fall, we've had a really good prescribed fire record there as well. This just kind of shows some of the acres that we've burnt and been able to do on the Forest Service side. And it shows all the stats there. And again, the big one that is notable is we burned a little over 8,000 acres in 2.5 days by Schmaltz, by Crater Lake National Park, called Boundary RX, and used aerial missions there. And, it was very successful. We do have plans potentially for further large prescribed fire in the future. Potentially looking out in state line country, which Mark's very familiar with. We've done many prescribed burns out there in the past, and it's just about been 10 years or better now since we've done some of the large landscape prescribed burning in that country is ready for another treatment. So I think it'll be good if we can pull that together. There's also some opportunities outside of Bly, and then also on the Silver Lake Highway. Potential opportunities up there as well. Any questions for me? Okay,
Looks good.
I'll yield This, I do have some specifics on BLM prescribed burning that I do want to mention. In the south corners, we've gotten 135 acres accomplished so far. Hicks Creek, just north of Lakeview, 62 acres, and then Clover Flat, out by Valley Falls, just west of Valley Falls, over 500 acres. So, BLM's doing a lot of really good work as well. Again, a little more tedious. We're cutting juniper, we're piling it, we're waiting for it to cure, we're finding a good window, and then we're burning. They have more restrictions, and some of those restrictions for us are that we don't want those piles to creep. So we have to have the right prescription. We're cognizant of the sage-grouse habitat and some of the different factors involved there. So again, really good work by all of us there with BLM.
So with that, we're talking about BLM and the uniqueness, you got the sage-grouse habitat, now you have the wilderness characteristics coming in about 1.6 million acres. And as we've worked on that, one of the concerns was for BLM to just build into the normal maintenance and thinning on the desert and different things, for fire control and all that. When you say that there's different things that are a little bit more of a challenge, I guess, is that where some of the challenges are coming between the sage-grouse and wilderness characteristics, and then the ACEs, RNAs, and all these things. Is it getting where it's getting tougher and tougher to do the right thing on the part of the public lands out there? I know that's a pretty loaded question.
I would say generally no. I could yield to the back here with Jamie and
I
Todd.
thought you might.
If they'd like to speak on it, but generally we're getting to burn where we want to, where the NEPA is and where the good work needs to be done to thin some juniper and make the landscape better. We've been able to do that so far. But
I would say as far as the wilderness character goes, where we're burning and where we finished burning, that has been done in the past and it hasn't been an issue. Now the rest will be contingent upon where we are with the RMP. So for now, it hasn't been much of a hindrance.
So Brad, much of, not much, but some of what they're burning in Clover Flat is within a wilderness characteristics area. And that had wilderness characteristics prior to us doing juniper treatment in it. So it adds a little bit of complexity, but it doesn't really change the fact that we're really geared towards doing those restoration activities, whether they're in wilderness characteristics, WSA, ACEC.
Jamie's heard this out of me several times. I see that, not to get into it too far, but no action alternative is the best thing, and be able to burn out there on those things. The way that the BLM grounds have been managed, and be able to show that it still has wilderness characteristics, show that it's been managed well. So I still support a no action alternative. Just speaking a little bit
for wilderness characteristics.
no action alternative. Thank you.
Morning. 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 I know all you guys. I'll give a quick introduction. My name is Andrew Taylor, and I am the Fire Management Officer for Sheldon Park, Mountain National Wildlife Refuge Complex for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So very kind of precluded to our poker fire that we had up on Hart mid-September. It was 23,400 acres-ish. Best that we could get for a shapefile on it, GIS mapping. 1,500 acres, right about that was actually on the BLM ground. We did our best to try to keep it all on the refuge, but we got sustained 30, 35 mile an hour winds and 6% humidities. The guys did everything they could. So we had good response from Fish and Wildlife Service, BLM, Forest Service. We had both hot shot crews from Lakeview and Waimea. 2 or 3 different RFPA showed up. French Glen, Warner Valley, and I think maybe another one out of Burns. We had BLM resources out of Burns. We had Fish and Wildlife resources out of Mount Here Refuge. Lots of air tankers, because once again, it was slow, so we got every air tanker that we wanted pretty much, so including a VLAT. So burned for about 14 hours, maybe 16, due to the winds and RH, and then we knew weather was coming the next morning. The guys out running the fire, Scott Hall and Abel Harrington, went through their complexity analysis and called myself, and Barry Whitt was involved with me, and Sean as our agency administrator and my regional staff. And it was rating out for a type 2 incident, just with the size and what it was doing, the amount of resources. But we kept calling the weather guy in Medford, and they kept saying rain will be there by 6 a.m. We were confident, so we knew that was coming. So we held off on the type 2 team, and the wind stopped finally, and the rain came in, and it was pretty much a deal. But I just want to give kudos to all the guys out there running that fire, because they kept people safe. They did what we could. I think we did minimize potential fire growth into that key sage grouse habitat on the refuge, and then minimize the fire footprint on the BLM ground to the north. So that was our main concerns. It got close to the aircraft not even being able to fly there towards the end of the day, just because of the wind speeds. Chad checked in with me at one time and said that the pilots were, aren't to mention, a little uncomfortable once in a while. And I said, hey, if they got to set down, we got to let this thing do what it's going to do. Then that's what we knew the weather was coming, but we wanted to try to minimize the size and the impact to the sage grouse habitat and the BLM ground. So I think everybody did good. The conditions we had, like Barry said, was the largest fire in the state this year, which I don't know if Heart Mountain's ever had the largest fire in the whole state of Oregon in 1 year, but I guess we're the winner this year, or loser, however you want to look at it. So since then, all our refuge complex staff and BLM resource staff, they work together, and we got the whole thing sprayed for invasives to try to control cheatgrass and all that from coming into the burn scar. That's completed. We're still trying to secure funding for seeding of native grasses in there. Hopefully we got that by next year. There may be some planting of sage and maybe some bitter brush in some places as well in the future. So that's moving along. And then speaking of the rehab, we had that Hart fire up on Hart. It was like 500 acres, started by the military flare 3 or 4 years ago now. We've been doing an extensive rehab on that that fire as well, and we actually finished that up with hand planting of sage and bitter brush. And that fire started this fall. All that's left of that is just monitoring it and see how it responds. And that sagebrush and bitter brush actually was hand-picked seed from the refuge that we shipped off to, is it Boise, John?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Somewhere in Idaho, I think Boise, and then they grow the seedlings and ship them here, and contractors plant them. So, anyway, we'll see how they do. Other than our fire stuff, my crews also seeded 1,046 acres in the Rock Creek Barn Hardy area on Hart Mountain. That's where we burned piles last year. We'd like to go in there and hand seed the burn spots with native grass seed, break it in. But also try to minimize the invasives and to promote the native grasses growing back in. So that got done this fall.
Have you seen pretty good success with that?
Actually, when the guys got in there to plant that, we wanted to plant it last year after we burned it, and but we got snowed out, and then we had to, of course, the government shut down, and then by then it was, we had to wait till summer. There's a lot of snow up there. But by the time I actually got in there this fall to see that, a lot of the black spots already were starting to fill back in with natives on their own anyways, but we threw some more seed in there and raked it in.
So the heat of the burn piles isn't detrimental.
Well, and actually, I believe they prefer we actually have a little bit of heat left in it when you throw the seed in. So that's why we try to seed it right after, which I will get to. We have 600 acres of piles slotted to burn this winter, early spring, up on Sheldon, on the little Sheldon part of the refuge. And then we'll try to get a window to where we can burn it and go right behind and put the seed on those black spots and rake it in. So that's all we got left for fuel work for this year. But moving forward, like BLM, we've got a lot of juniper work being done. That's our primary focus. You know, the last several years is for the state grouse habitats and that state or the western juniper encroachment. And getting a handle on that, and cutting it pilot, letting it cure like Barry said, getting the right prescription, right weather, going in and burning the piles, and then we're following up with seed. So, we also did burn 150 acre meadow burn out at the Key Ranch this fall with the help of the Forest Service and BLM. That hadn't been burned ever, as far as we have records for, and it was very thick, heavy loaded grass, organic stuff in there that honestly it needed burned, and I think it will look really, really good come springtime.
That was on private side of the deal.
That was all on fish, all on the refuge that part of the Mickey Ranch that we have. So,
Are you guys got any plans to do that to post meadows or anything?
we are actually looking at getting fire back into the meadows up on Hart and on Sheldon. So we're right now I'm working with biologists and stuff, and we're prioritizing where first. And I think we're going to target the ones that haven't had fire in them that we have record of.
You'll love this comment. It's just comment. You could use cows until you get your fire approved.
Can't talk to me on that one. Anyway,
John knows where.
anyways, yes, we are looking at doing some more meadow burning on those refuges. So very good. Yeah, I think the last meadow we burned on either refuge was 4 or 5 years ago. And so
I've spent some time up there, and it was pretty thick.
Yep. So we're gonna kind of set up a couple for control to see how the sage grouse also react to it. So, anyways,
I'm not a biologist, but I think it'll be positive.
yeah, it could be for sure. So we do everything for habitat, even the wildlife refuge systems. Other than that, for staffing for us, I'll just kind of give you a rundown, even though we'll be back here in the spring, but we run 2 engines. The last couple of years, I've only had two of my permanent seasonal positions hired. We've been trying to get our assistants hired, but we've had problems with recruitment here. So this last summer, not just the fish, but the whole DOI actually issued some new standard PDs to get our engine captains up to the same grade as the Forest Service, so we can try to compete. I did just get my captain bumped into those PDs, and now I'll be able to bump up the pay raise for the assistants. So I'm hoping I can get a couple more permanent bodies hired for the refuge staff, and that'll help out the whole partnership. We play well together here. We share resources. My guys went out and burned quite a bit this fall on Forest Service, did a little bit of the BLM stuff, and like I said, all those guys came out and helped us on that Mickey Meadow burn, and they said that they're willing to come up to Sheldon and help us burn piles. So anyway, that's all I got, unless you guys got specific questions for refuge related.
I do have a question for Barry. I see that, with the human caused fires, if I remember right, there was like 50 some last year.
Yeah.
And we have more this year. And are we doing any kind of education on public education?
So to answer the question, one thing that was different for 2019 is we brought in a prevention officers and did more education type things. We're trying to get into the schools more. I think one of the things that we're finding out is that if we educate the students, starting them very young and then working their way up, they help with their parents a little bit as far as some of the prevention things that can be done. We definitely are out there at different events, where Mosquito Festival, we were at the Kent Fair. We're at different fairs, different events going on, Irish Days, things like that. So we're trying to get the message out there as well. I think if you look at the stats, I'm not looking at them right offhand, but Klamath County, I think they went down in their human caused fires. So some of those are landowners doing some burning, and it's inside of a restriction period, and so there's a response. Doesn't necessarily mean that every one of those fires got away, but they were burning potentially when they either didn't have a permit or it wasn't called in to let everybody know that they were going to do so. Yeah, maybe Dustin's got something.
I would just add that for Klamath County, it's weather in the spring has a lot to do with it, and whether it warms up before green up gets there. And when people are burning, pre-green up fires are pretty good workload in Klamath County.
Yeah, so if you look at 982, human caused fires for 2019 was only 8. And 982 was 9, and then in 17 it was 13. So pretty low number on the private side as far as human starts. On the federal side, 30. So it has gone down a little bit. I'd like to think that our education is helping out. We do work with social media as well, and we try to get messages out on local newspapers and whatnot too, but there's certainly room for improvement.
Seems like Klamath has more of an issue with the human caused fire than we do.
A couple more people than we have here.
Yeah, definitely.
They just have a more urban interface. You look at the Chiloquin community, we've got a big fuels reduction project over there. We used the plan that we did for the North Warners, Cricket Mud Honey. We had 18 landowners over here, Cricket Mud Honey. We had over 1,500 landowners at Chiloquin. So, it's just the pure fact of more numbers. You do have more instances where people want to go out and burn their animals and do different things.
Yeah, I believe Dustin.
All right, good morning. Good morning. Dustin Gustavson with ODF. Just a update for you that's commensurate with the 2019 fire season for Lakeview ODF, so hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. It was a pretty benign fire season for the Lake Unit ODF. I think in here it has 22 fires for 187 acres. I was looking at some stuff yesterday. A couple numbers that jumped out at me is 60% of those fires were prior to June 15th, which is pretty unusual for us. And 90% of those acres were prior to June 15th. So really, for what we think of fire season, mid-June, when our seasonal workforce comes on, to mid-September, I think the Lake Unit ODF, we had 8 fires in that time period that with our seasonals on. So they were a little bored with firefighting. But we kept them busy with building fence, and now that we got some expert fence builders around. So I really don't have anything really to say about fire season. I'm sure next year or this coming year will be different, just like every year after that. So we'll have the same staffing that we typically have. I don't anticipate any big changes there. Normal turnover, about 35 to 40% of our seasonal workforce is what we're anticipating. This fall, though, we were able to do a little prescribed burning. I think we did about 90 acres of Boulder Canyon between piles and broadcast burning that we did. We helped the Forest Service on 4 or 5 different prescribed burns. We did about 40 acres of thinning, part of the North Warren project on private land. A little prep work with a dozer out there as well. And our Federal Forest Restoration crew, which is a crew of 4, Federal Forest Restoration dollars, state of Oregon. That crew this fall did 400 and some inventory plots for the Forest Service. Mostly out of like Bly and Silver. That's about it. If you got any questions, happy to answer.
So the interface with where Lake County is starting to get more and more urban sprawl or whatever you want to call it. Over the years, there's been some work done on some of the private properties for fire resilience and things. Where are we at? Are we starting to get, you see California, you see people losing their homes and everything. What are you seeing out there, Dustin, as far as need as we're starting to go further and further out into the forest with developments and with recreational housing, I guess, cabins, and with residential housing? Are you seeing an area that maybe is more at risk in Lake County than other areas? The Drews development is one that is probably creates quite a bit of issues whenever the fire comes through.
Yeah, I guess I don't have the long-term perspective on seeing a lot of development and spreading, but that Drews Reservoir Country, Drews Gap, Horse Mountain, trying to think of where else. Maybe just along the rim there, inner rim along the highway, west or south, however that highway runs. I can't keep them straight.
There's even some cabins up East Bay Road near Silver Lake, you have the Cowboy Dinner Tree, places like that. Kind of start to go back into the woods of the mountains.
Yeah.
The Dairy Creek area and on up towards the Dead Horse and Campbell, those lots, we did a lot of those lots back through the foreclosure. It seems to be there's more and more interest in people putting cabins and stuff up there.
Yeah, I think I sent every one of you the wildfire council report. And in there, the governor's wildfire council, and looked at many aspects of fire, from communities to response, restoration, so on. A couple things that jumped out is maybe some recommendation, maybe some changes in mapping out high risk areas and changes with building codes, I believe it was, for the land use planning side of things, for those high risk areas. You can see that maybe having some traction that would be implemented in some of these areas in Lake County. It's probably a couple of years out. I think there was also some discussion back in '97. We always called it Senate Bill 360. It was Wildland Urban Interface Act. It's needing some revision, so I can see that being updated and maybe some work done there as well.
I think there's going with California fires, there's going to be different pushes come forward, and not all of them bad, some of them very good. But as a county, through the land use and through several different things, we're involved in some of this. We need to be the partner to try to, at least if there's an educational side of it, if you're going to live out in the woods, these are the things we'd like to see done, or need to be done.
Yeah, and there, after the California stuff and with this wildfire council, the big thing is where do you target those investments? And there's kind of quantitative risk assessment, I think is what they're what I've seen is the highest priority areas are the areas with a large amount of wildland urban interface. And so when you take, comparatively speaking, across the state, wildland urban interface, Lake County has very minimal. We have a fair amount for ourselves, but when we compare ourselves to Jackson County or Josephine County or the Chutes, something like that, we don't have a lot. So I could see where some of our maybe potential investments down the road in the state level or whatever, looking at those high risk areas, we may not be very competitive right off the bat. And so we may need to look at other options, and that's where maybe land use planning, building codes, that sort of aspect, getting folks to harden your structure to prevent it from being impacted would be a little more important than, because we wouldn't necessarily have a lot of dollars available for doing work around the home.
Right, I think there's a component maybe for the state forestry to be at the table. You do an assessment on every piece of property for fire protection. I would think that a portion of that money should be used for education as people start with their control and everything. Not, I don't know where all that money goes. I know it's for support whenever there's fires and everything, but yeah, we don't have the density. But we just talked about human-caused fires, and they're caused on a lot of burning out there on the private lands. And one human-caused fire there that turns into a Berry Point fire of 140,000 or whatever. Just thinking, educational-wise, through the planning process or whatever, if you guys have brochures or anything, as we start seeing more and more, we all want our 10 acres out in the woods.
Yeah, and I don't. It's probably a good point. I probably need to connect with the planning department. So I know anybody that builds within our district, there's a form and it's gonna mark whether you're within a wildfire hazard zone. And so they come, they talk to us, and we tell them yes or no. I guess I'm not sure where it goes after that. I'm not sure where.
It might be something that we may need to look into. I think when I was looking through it, and I just pulled it up on my screen just so I could go through it a little bit. On that report, it talks about other communities having adapted their local land use planning and building codes to increase wildfire readiness. And that's what they're looking at, is wanting to try and promote that fire readiness for local inhabitants that live right on that cusp or in that forest boundary. So I'm not exactly sure what that would entail as far as adjusting our codes or anything, but I think it's more promoting the educational aspect of it. Like, okay, this is where you're living, and these are the dangers that are associated with this locality.
Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of potential to look at some of the codes from just simple things of access for fire equipment to be able to access a residence. Make sure it meets some standard that the person builds out there. Non-flammable roofing, I don't see a lot of shake roof going in, but what if that was a new thing or a new fad that took off again? Fire resistant siding, maybe clearing or defensible space around it. I guess that's where I'd be nice to push that is that, that every new home or new structure out there met that standard. Obviously, it requires some upkeep over time, but
Right.
At least it start that process and start that education.
Yeah, I just feel like it should be more of an educational side, because as I went through the report, I remember this other spot and I highlighted it just so I could kind of, for future reference. It talks about the BLCD work with counties and cities on rulemaking for land use planning relating to reducing wildfire risk, adopting building code standards such as R327 being an option for risk reduction. And I guess I'm hesitant in my mind to push for additional rulemaking that's going to further restrict private property owners on what they can do with their land. can. I really think people just need to use their common sense. And if they're going to live in an area that has a high fire risk, there needs to be some planning implemented on the side of the private property owner where they're protecting their home, their landscape. And if they're going to be having fires burning cones on their property and everything, they also need to be cognizant of the fact that it's not just their property that they're putting at risk, it's their surrounding property as well.
I do agree with that. One thing that I saw here lately, this was through a news source, so the accuracy, but I believe that due to the amount of insurance claims down in California for some of those fires, the state of California actually had to regulate the insurance industry to say you cannot disqualify folks. You got to re-up their policy, essentially, and mandate it. And what was occurring is there's so many claims for fire damage, people losing homes and everything. We all know what happened down there. That the insurance industry is looking at certain zip codes and saying, we aren't selling insurance. And so, yes, I agree that you should be protecting your own investment out there in that urban interface. But if we get enough people that aren't protecting their investment, and that's impacting the insurance industry, and then there you go, they just say, we're not going to sell you guys insurance, anybody around here, then it's having an impact upon far more than just that person or their immediate neighbor. And I think insurance with wildfire is probably going to be some driving force and some of the future changes that we see.
So I guess where I was going with it, we got in quite deep on this, but it wasn't about the construction of the houses and that and how they were constructed is more about defensible space. And so that if there was that huge house fire on your own property, maybe it's contained on that property instead of burning other people out. As far as the building codes and all that kind of stuff, I personally really wasn't going to go there because I have a similar opinion. If you want to build on your own property, build. But the defensible space, I think the state has a real play in there, at least education-wise, means that people that live out in the non-protected lands or they're protected by the state, I'm sorry, that you have a play in maybe educating people on defensible space and those type of things, as far as thinning, cleaning, that kind of stuff. I think starting at an educational wise would be a good thing. So, and that's pretty much whenever somebody comes in for that conditional use permit at the county through the planning, if there was boilerplate educational type stuff that could be given to those applicants, I think would be a good start. Not really mandating anything, but educating. Other questions?
I don't have
You don't want us to have any more questions. What I'm saying.
Bring it on.
We got about 5 minutes before our next thing. Is there anybody else that's going to speak today? No. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it, and the good work out there, Andrew and John, keeping people safe with unbelievable weather conditions on that fire up there. Glad that nobody got hurt on that. All the way across, everybody goes out there and fights fire. Thank you guys for what you do. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Come back at 10 o'clock. We have the ski hill.
I found the lever.
That's my shit. Had to be you. Okay, it's 5 minutes after 10. We're going to come back into session. We have the ski hill update. Barry, are you expecting any others or just?
No, I think I'm in. I put out a group text to ask for support, but everybody's got day jobs.
I absolutely understand.
All right, Bill. Yeah, I got Chad behind me.
There you go.
He's got a seat ready.
So again, Barry Schulmerger, I'm the club president for Fremont Highlander Ski Club, volunteer club. We're 501c3. Obviously, you guys probably know, but the Fremont Highlander Ski Club and Warren Canyon Ski Area is on county land. A long time ago, there was a land swap between Forest Service and the county, and so the ski area resides on county land, and that's been a good thing. Just kind of want to get you up to speed there. Want to recognize our board members that we do have on the board. Our hill manager is Jim Copeland. He's been doing it for a number of years. Does an excellent job for us, and we're very glad to have him. Dave Knowles does our grooming for us. He's not a board member, but helps us with grooming.
Downhill Dave.
Downhill Dave, yes. And so he's already given us a little update on this season. Our treasurer is Danny Owens. She keeps us in balance with our checking and our money market. Keeps us in line with our taxes and everything like that. Does an excellent job. Other members are Carly Rimstead, Melissa Maxwell, Eric Wolf, Chris Bishop, and that's pretty much our board right at the moment. Paul Whitman also is a big contributor and helps out with ski patrol, and then Kristen Hill actually organizes our ski patrol group, so she does a very good job with that. Wanted to come to you today. Haven't briefed commissioners in a long time. I apologize for that. Most of the time when we come to visit, we've got our hand out and are on a thin thread there. As you can see in this report, I'll show it to you here in just a minute. We've had a few years where we haven't been open, and when we don't open, that really affects our budget because we still have to pay for liability insurance, and that insurance is not cheap. So the money goes away whether you're open or not, and you can't just hold tight very well. But want to let you know that we're in good standing, and we have plans to open soon. So, but first I'd like to get into this. This is the Pacific Northwest Ski Area Association. This is a little report that they brought out. Just wanted to highlight our visitors that we have coming to Warner Canyon. If you open the first page there, you see Warner Canyon, and you can look back on the history of visitors. You can see that for 2018-19, we claimed 5,160 visitors. So we had a fantastic ski year, but also included in those numbers is our summer visitors. So it's year-round now. And that's one of the things that commissioners in the past have pushed for Warner Canyon to do, is to not just be a winter recreation area, but also a summer too.
And thank you. I'd love to see that happening. Yeah. I've experienced an event or two up there, so great. Good job.
Yeah. So we had Summerfest this summer. We also have people renting the lodge. We make it available for folks to rent at about $200 a day, and we do make some exceptions here and there for different things, but that's generally the rate. We've had that being rented, and whether it's a wedding or a different events going on, and people seem to be very pleased with it.
Question. I would love to see the availability of internet up there. I would love the opportunity for the county to maybe have smaller retreats, or if we have other counties come here or whatever. I know whenever OTC came here, I would love to be able to host OTC, the Oregon Transportation Commission, but
Right.
even with the internet, wouldn't have enough network. But there's opportunities for us to showcase Lake County through the ski hill that has more availability of internet and everything comes on. So just a thought for you guys. It's a cool place.
It's certainly something we've considered. There's good times and not so good times.
Yes, absolutely.
And internet's kind of one of those things that we have certainly thought about. One thing that is kind of nice about not having internet is, the kids get in the lodge, get their heads down on their mobile devices, and you don't see that a whole lot up there because we don't have internet.
Right.
We got a little bit of service, but all in all, they're having fun, they're talking to each other, and then they're out there skiing or snowboarding.
You can always just shut it off.
But I agree with you, it's something we certainly have considered. Another thing that keeps getting mentioned is we sure would like to see a camera pointed at the ski hill. Now we know we've got the one right out there on the pole with ODOT that shows the pass right there. And it's just right out the lodge door there. And be nice since all that's there if we potentially could get a camera pointed at the ski hill. I think that would give people more idea of what it looks like up there. And folks from Klamath or Bend or different places that are gonna travel know up there.
That set up your trip, Jack, have you worked with ODOT any at all in trying to get?
We have not, just because, just trying to stay above ground and whatnot, but that has been.
If you want to
something
pursue
we've
that,
discussed.
get with me, Barry, and I'll see what I can. It's probably not traditional for folks to do anything like that. But sometimes if the camera's turned the right way to catch the highway, maybe catch part.
Yeah, we just put another camera right on top of that, pointing the other way.
Yeah, looking at the other part of the highway.
Well, like Lake of the Woods and some of those other ones have different views, and so Diamond Lake.
Yeah.
So we might be able to,
Having that panoramic or something, yeah, that'd be nice.
on the summertime thing too, I was gonna talk to you about that also, but we're working with, Jessica at the chamber, and we're doing, we have some plans that we need to bring forward to you guys.
She has already,
Okay.
yeah, and we're on board,
Okay.
so. Next year's Summerfest will be earlier, I believe it'll be in June.
June. And so what we're trying to do is get some kind of, we need to get a concert up there at the same time as the Tour of the Outback and some of these other things. And, just kind of start making that a summer destination also.
Yeah.
And for the ski hill, and it benefits our whole community, so.
So I just wanted to highlight though that, we brought more recreators into Lakeview and Lake County this year than we ever have before. As far as we can tell, we know some of them are local, but up at the ski hill this winter, we sure saw a lot of folks from Klamath County. We're starting to see more from Deschutes County, people that are experiencing the long lines at Mount Bachelor and things like that. We're certainly not competing with Mount Bachelor as far as what they bring to offer, but we do have the what we think is the cheapest lift ticket in Oregon, and so we're very proud of that. We try to keep it at a reasonable rate so that everybody can go up there and still afford to recreate in the wintertime, and so far it's been good for us. We feel like we're at a pretty good threshold as far as what our costs are and everything like that. So we haven't raised our rates. We're not raising our rates anyway for this 1920 ski season. And anyway, we evaluate that, but we're very careful about when we do raise our rates. Is it a necessity or is it just are we finally just too low in price? So it certainly creates a lot of discussion with the board. Also want to highlight the accomplishment that we've done up at the ski hill as far as our forested lands there on the county property. As you all know, we got a grant in the past and thinned all the timber up there, not all of it, but everything that was feasible to do that wasn't too steep. And right now it looks really good, it's healthy and doing well. And so people are getting to not only ski on our main runs, but they get to, if they're so skilled enough, they get to go play in between the trees as well. So that's been really good.
So with that, excuse me, it's been a few years, some of that was tied with $3, some was rack dollars, I believe. I think
Some
we-
was rack dollars.
And I think we used some Title III to, not positive on that. Are you at a place where there's sort of like phase 2 or anything on any of that? Or, it's still in really pretty good shape.
We're in pretty good shape. The areas that we would like to treat are pretty steep. It would require either specialized equipment or actually timber fallers type thing, you know. And then what do you do with the material once it's on the ground? So we keep discussing that. But I really like where we're at right now. We just need to be careful what we do because it takes a long time to grow a tree around here, as you all know.
Yeah.
And just want to make sure we're doing it right. Open it up the right runs where necessary.
But you know, they loosened up some of the rules on Title III. I'm not sure if it fits or not. But,
Something to
if you
consider.
got some thoughts, come talk to me and I'll work with some of that thoughts possibly. For the health of the property. I mean, it's ultimately it's county property, you know, so the way you guys, the stewardship of that property is important to the county also. Plus, it's a great way to show active stewardship on the ground. Showcase it.
It's also, since it's been a while, I just want to remind you, we did have 40 acres right next to the ski area donated to Fremont Hill Ski Club by Dennis Berry. This was property that he bought back when he was young through he used to be a paper delivery boy and different odd jobs that he took up, and he bought a 40-acre parcel there and another 40-acre parcel further in Hammersley Canyon there. But he recently donated that. We've thinned that property as well. We'll look at some more as far as underburning and whatnot of that property.
Is that to the north of the ski hill?
Kind of the northwest, yeah, right along Hammersley Road there. And so that 40 acres actually is, he wished it to be dedicated to the Fremont Highlander Ski Club. So that is not actually on county land as we speak right now. But we're honoring that, and so the Fremont Highlander Ski Club actually has 40 acres. So
That's awesome.
That's great.
you know, if things were ever to develop and we ever were to get enough people coming to the ski area, that's certainly an option to go off that side of the hill. But right now, we have no plans to further develop that direction.
Well, that might fit some of your summer recreation.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's a nice hike right up in there.
I do want to give you kudos. We went last winter. My grandkids were there. Tony and I took them out to Hunter's Hot Springs, and there was a man and wife and two of their children. Well, come to find out, he was the principal of Shady Cove School District, and he had come over and skied on Warner Canyon. But prior to that weekend, he had came, and for some reason there was too much snow or something, and the ski hill was closed for the day or whatever. And his kid was pretty disappointed, but they were grooming the hill, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble because of insurance purposes, but they loaded the kids up in the snow machine and took them with them, and they said that they had never been so tickled, you know.
Yeah.
It just, he goes, we're tickled to beat heck with how good the people were to us.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was a big deal.
Yeah, we've had lots of experiences like that. It's been really neat. So, as you know, the county has developed some rec sites around the lodge there, and then also make some plans for some hookups further out in the parking lot, whatnot. All that stuff helps, and whether it's winter or summer, we're starting to see a little bit more use there. So it's been really good. One last thing, just want to highlight, we lost a board member, Barb Stevens, this last summer. And so we're having a sign made there at the lodge, dedication to her. And we're looking forward to that. We have a local person who's helping build the sign. It's a metal art type sign. Darren Lasley is actually the one doing it. And so we look forward to dedicating the lodge to her in her memory. So
That's awesome.
We've had tremendous support from the community as far as giving money in her name, and so I believe we've gotten almost $9,000 in that. So I'm very pleased to see that come in, and great support from everybody in the community. Pretty neat. We continue to try to make small improvements there at the lodge. One of the big things we need to work on is our kitchen, getting a good stove in there and whatnot. That's our next biggest priority.
But yours, I'm assuming it's gonna be a gas stove.
It's gonna be electric.
Is it?
The reason we have to go to electric is because if we go to gas, we don't have the right type of hood to have it. And if you go to a class 1 hood, you're looking at some big bucks. And we determined that we just couldn't afford that. So we've actually taken a gas stove out and we're looking to put an electric stove in. Finding the right stove is not easy. But we hope to do it. Other than that, all's good. Just wanted to let you guys know that we're doing good and appreciate your support.
What do you see the county's role in trying to help you guys out even more to expand summer use, winter use? What are some of the things that maybe we can help?
We've got recreation trails that are up Boulder Canyon and whatnot. It'd be nice if we could connect somehow between the ski area and Boulder Canyon, so that all that's tied together, so that we're making a loop versus just in and out type of thing. We do have to cross the properties there. It's been looked at in the past, but that's certainly an opportunity. At the Summer Fest, we did allow folks. We got a special bracket, allowed them to take their bicycles up on the chairlift. That was very popular. At certain times of the year, it doesn't always make sense to run the chairlift in the summertime, but if you have an event like that, and then they have a trail they can go ride and go take off on, those things
So one of the things on that topic was we need to either build them ourselves or find custom made deals that we can hang on there so that, because we're just strapping the bicycles on with straps, and if we could just have like some bracket on the back of the chairs.
And that's the plan for next year's Summer Fest, is we'll have X amount of brackets built and hope to have that so that they can be more easily brought up the hill and safe too.
So your challenge on connecting the trails is there's private property between.
I believe, yeah. You got Collins Land, you got Forest Service BLM.
So on the Forest Service and BLM, we have to have the process.
Yes. And doesn't mean it can't be done, but
Just slows it down.
just slows it down. And it has been looked at before, but it's just something that we need to potentially try to rejuvenate that group again.
Well,
taking
our
another-
trails committee, that's what we wanna see more trails and stuff, so I'll bring that up too.
Well, be sure and go, I believe one of the right routes to go is through the travel management maps and plans. Whenever that was all put in place, it was to allow travel management, not to eliminate travel on forest. And our forest has probably the least amount of trails as any forest, so that's a good opportunity to say we need more trails within our forest. I think that's a good.
That would be awesome if we had one looking to the ones that we already have established.
Yeah. It gives people some more options.
Because we hooked the Noni Trail to the Timber Trail last year. It was our big project, so it would be awesome to hook that trail to the ski area.
So, other than that, as far as helping the ski area, we appreciate your support when we do come into lean times and whatnot. I know that we do get a little bit of recreation money from the county on a yearly basis, and all that helps and things like that. So, other than that, we're doing a good job Jessica Bogardus with the county helped us get on a different website, and I think, that Travel Southern Oregon and some of the different things we're doing.
Well, that video that they put on Warner Canyon was awesome.
Yeah, so we're doing different things out there to promote Lake County.
Yeah, because you almost have double the usage.
Yeah.
Well, over double the usage.
One thing we did is we focused on a group over at OIT. We had a weekend, a day for OIT students, and it just happened to be a really good snow powder day. And all those kids with their social media out there and whatnot, it was a big hit. So we got a lot of PR in that way too.
So do you offer any package where it's inclusive of stuff?
It's something we certainly have considered. We've had a couple people talk to us about it. We'll definitely try to help them out if they want to get started and things like that.
Well, it had a small business on the back when I ran my little store. The Sunday people that came over from Klamath to go on the ski hill had a very positive impact on the way home. So
Yeah.
they'd all stop at my little store.
Yeah.
And buy different things. So there's an economic benefit to our community outside of just being on the ski hill. And, especially sometimes during the off season, the motels, have extra person stay overnight, restaurants, small stores. It's all an economic driver besides being up on the ski hill. So if, I know you guys are all a volunteer group, it might be something the chamber takes on, but a package deal that this motel offers this and this restaurant offers this and so on, and that marketing is an attractive way to try to get people to not only ski one day, people in Klamath stay over and they ski 2 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a thought.
Yeah, we need to explore that again. As you can see in that report, there's been years where we haven't been open.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get down that track and then we don't open. It kills the deal. Hopefully we'll have a good ski season. We do, we're having a meeting Wednesday night, but the current ski report is we got 19 inches on top, 27 inches at midway, and about a foot on the face. So if all goes well and the predicted storms that are coming in, we plan to open on Saturday. So
Just come.
it's coming Saturday.
Wow, awesome.
So that will give us the full Christmas break for the students, and you may have to be a little careful at the bottom of the hill, but there is a series of storms that are predicted to come in. It's clear through the 1st of January.
In the old days, that you use your rock skis at the first end of the season.
One other change that's happening this year, Tom Batty with the bike shop has bought the rental business from Vanessa's.
Yeah.
And so all ski rentals and snowboard rentals can be done at the bike shop, bike concierge shop this year.
For both seasons.
For both seasons.
Yeah.
I think it's a good fit for him.
Right, yeah.
Synergies are there. Very good. Well,
I'm
thank you
writing
very
that check for you today.
Alright.
This week anyway.
Okay, thank you very much.
Here.
Thank you very much.
Alright, thank you very
Thank you very
Mary, I have a question.
Chad, pleasure meeting you.
All right,
Lessons for like
we'll go down our agenda. I see Nikki's here.
we offer
Go ahead and
lessons.
Jump right to
Start
that.
January.
And,
They're kids orphans. I know. I have to
So
get
Nikki,
them.
probably.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So it
have
starts
you on
like the first weekend of January.
So this is the
If
title.
you look at our website,
Melanie, could you give a
warnercanyonski.com.
little bit of an
Gives all
overview
that
as the
information.
contract manager
Sure.
for Brad Brown? Okay.
So initially, he gave us an estimate of $9,800. He went with the assumption that we would have the same equipment that Tyler had, or excuse me, Harney County had when they set up their Tyler. After further investigation and questioning him, we got the bid down to $7,500, $7,750. We vetted all of the equipment and licenses and things, so I think that's the best deal that we can get. It's more expensive than we anticipated, but unfortunately it's something we have to have this start up and go.
Okay, thank you for the overview. you, you are now the program
Project manager.
project
for it.
manager
Yes.
for the conversion that we're moving over for the business department slash treasury department. So go ahead.
You know, for our financial software upgrade, I'll be the project manager moving forward, working with Tyler and the county and coordinating with IT and project further. Our goal is to be done by July. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it's hopeful. I think it probably might be September. But in the initial investigations, you're limited to what you know as far as the exact details that you need. And technology is even hard when you know what you're looking at to guess. So this was kind of a, initially we didn't think there were gonna be any cost for the basics that we needed to run the system on any system that we chose. But in the initial conversations, we were being compared to another county using something that's been in their system for 10 years. And we're looking at now putting in a new software that's 10 years newer with more advances and more necessary space. So with that being said, that's when we, after finding the exact details of what was necessary, it came to our attention that we needed more space for the whole program. And it wouldn't have mattered which program we chose or who we went with, it was gonna be, space was necessary. We knew that there would be some conversion costs with IT, with AgTech and just getting that transition done. So these are supposed to be the true costs and the real costs. I know IT, again, I won't guarantee it, but that's what we're being told, that this is it and that he's accounting for everything. So at this point in time, it's based on the information that we had when we first presented our cost. This is in addition to that, and it would be going to AgTech and not to Tyler. If there's any other questions, but.
So just kind of give me a brief overview of why we have to have this, because the software that Tyler's bringing in doesn't match with.
So you need 4 terabytes of space. To process it, it's 4 terabytes total. You need a hard drive to process it, you need a hard drive to host it, and you need room to grow, and then you need a drive to support the backups and the historical data. So we were thinking we'd only need 3, and then Tyler gave them like a thing to compute how much they would need. It turned out that we need 4 drives. Initially, he thought with our new big Honker server, we wouldn't have to have that at all because we have like the best of the best. It's supposed to be lightning. Well, it is lightning fast. It's great, but he wasn't expecting to need that much storage space.
He is Brad Brown,
Mm-hmm.
not Tyler.
So after investigation, we realized that we're gonna have to buy these drives, and that's fine. They'll hook right in. He'll put some things on there, some shelves, and it'll all work as one. But unfortunately, we have to have them. And then Tyler also requires that you have SQL licenses, and we don't have those yet. So we'll have SQL licenses. They're sold in groups of 5, even though we have 4 drives. So we'll have an extra SQL license, and then we'll also have to have Microsoft licenses for the drives.
And we thought that we might be able to also, in moving the current system that Lake County uses to the new server, big thing that they got, that we might be able to utilize the old server. However, in talking about that, it appears that there are concerns that it's too old and that it could crash, and then we'd be in a worse situation than we are if that crash while we were using it or when we needed it.
I thought Tyler was supposed to do all the storage.
They looked at having them host it versus us host it, and it's $1 million cheaper.
Over
for
20
us.
years, it's over $1
It's a
million
big
for
savings.
them to be the actual hosting apparatus. It would be nice, it would be done all, you wouldn't need anything, we would have nothing here basically, but it is a very, very large cost in comparison to this upfront cost for us to do it ourselves.
All the questions I have.
I have no questions, cost of doing business. I think, over the years, we'll see as, we update software and everything, it's just part of the world is the support.
And I don't understand it at all, and I was just trying to make sure that, cause we had talked about them storing it themselves, and so I just didn't wanna.
Not to get in too far, but, doesn't matter if it's this department or it's the software we have in the clerk's department or the sheriff's department, whatever, there's support that goes along with all that. And it's too bad there isn't just one set of software that takes care of everything for the county.
Unfortunately, I found out through all this that Tyler actually could do that, but it's too late now because we're already vested in
Well,
a couple other things.
if there are $1 million cost for just one set of software, it must be several million if they
Well,
don't
no,
at all.
I mean, just as far as providing, they have actual software that would have accommodated the clerk, the assessor, the building department, the planning department, and put them all together on the same platform. But we didn't know that when everyone was, I wish we could have all, from the very beginning, even with the BADM, that we all could have done something together and not so separated, but sometimes financial apparatuses don't talk to each other, so. But with this, Tyler's so advanced that the hope is that they can provide for the county with continued upgrades that that's part of our program. We will continue to get upgrades from them. That they will be able to handle us for minimum 20 years. And that this isn't gonna have to be looked at again. It will just be the maintenance and the upgrades that we will pay for on an annual basis. And not just reevaluate the whole system again and change, but that they will be able to keep pace. They're a huge company, so that's the hope with them.
Definitely the hope. Technology
And then it
changes
works.
fast, and the upgrades aren't usually free, but it is encouraging to hear.
They've been in
that-
business for 45 years, so it's a long time
Yeah.
for a software company.
But it is encouraging to hear that what they're bringing before us is a cost savings compared to having Tyler do it themselves. So
Yeah.
I have no further questions. That's good. Yep. All right, we'll act on it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jake Greer. Come on up, sir.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, sir.
When's your birthday?
Sunday.
Sunday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, no worries.
So, you have before us,
Before you,
let's go ahead and take it. I believe we're gonna act on this today in a ratification way.
yeah, this is ratification. So I was before you last month to have our state plan, which is our state budget that we submit to the Oregon Department of Corrections. We got that approved and signed. What I neglected to do was attach the contract that goes with that.
Oh.
So I believe it was December 2nd. I approached Commissioner Albertson in my liaison commissioner's absence to sign that with the agreement that I would come before the board to get that ratified. And since that was signed, you should find in your packet a copy of the approval to move forward, as well as the signed agreement from the Department of Corrections.
So I'm just before the board to get that contract approved. And ratified. So what that does is the contract itself outlines what we as a county are obligated to do, but more importantly, what my department as adult community corrections is obligated to do as part of that contract, which is supervise, sanction, and provide services. Those are the big three things that our budget is designed for: sanction, services, and supervision.
So I'd say for this is a ratification, we might as well go ahead and get this off the plate today,
Yeah, we can do that.
so.
I'm actually not seeing the signature sheet.
Oh,
here, I got it.
Yeah, I had to look for it.
Yeah, okay, got it.
The way it's done is it's a date of the contract, but they have appendix A, appendix B, appendix C, and D, and then
Right.
added,
Correct.
the actual go ahead on the back page, so everything should be there.
So I will move to accept the ratification signature of Commissioner Albertson on the intergovernmental agreement number 5849 between the state of Oregon and Lake County.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You betcha. Next item I have, Melanie, is written response to ODFW discussion. You brought that forward. That was a request from the developer, I believe,
No. So
from ODFW. Yeah.
ODFW asked for a written response for your decision for the two CUP phases. I'm hesitant to send something to them because we don't normally do that. We just make a motion and that's it. I wonder about ulterior motives for wanting something like this. So I was hoping that you guys could have a discussion amongst yourselves and decide if you wanted to send the formal decision to the ODF&W attorney or if you just wanted to send minutes
Well,
per usual.
yeah, I'm coming back to that. Where I'm at is.
I'm comfortable with the minutes.
Yeah,
I feel like we made our motion very clear.
Yep.
And if they can look back on the minutes themselves to see what our actual motion was and what the discussion was surrounding it.
100%.
yeah,
And
that's official.
I do not want those guys having the ability to do anything against us if we use the wrong verbiage on a letter. That's absolutely not for me.
So, but just for
Other stuff.
So for the record's sake, it was actually ODF&W that requested this letter,
Yeah.
not for the resolutions themselves for both sites.
They wanted a formal response for your decision.
I mean, what I was seeing in front of me were actual sheets that were actually stated resolution.
Well, that's a possibility. You guys could adopt that resolution, that draft resolution, but
Where'd the draft come from?
it came from the applicant.
Okay, so the applicant themselves put that together and ODF&W was requesting it.
So
It was an option for us.
it's
to
an
do.
option for you guys
Correct.
to consider, to
Correct.
send that as your written response.
But it wasn't our written response.
Correct.
That's kind of where I understand. I guess I'm just, for the record, I'm trying to make sure that we made it clear where that came from and why we're having this conversation today. I think we have consensus of the board that the minutes were sufficient.
Mhm.
I just wanna make sure that, if it was actually the applicant who sent us those documents, were they doing that as a request of the ODF&W?
No.
Wanting that?
So I'll give you the whole backstory. So they asked Mr. Bailey to give them a written response with your decision. He sent that to me and Darwin. I went and talked to Darwin about it and he said it'd probably be best to get the applicants' input into that and see if they wanted to prepare like a draft that we could modify and accept possibly. So they did that at our request.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's prudent to accept that or if we should just go with our minutes. because I think it's strange that they're requesting this, but I wanted you guys to foster the discussion and just give me direction on where we should proceed.
Okay, so it wasn't actually, it was pre our legal counsel's request.
Legal counsel did not request it. The three of us had a discussion and I reached out to them from the
Jim's
three of us.
response was the same as ours, that
Yeah,
The minutes were sufficient.
he said they were definitely sufficient, but if you guys wanted to go above and beyond, you could do this also. And he said it would be best to have the applicant prepare something to make sure that we did not misstep in any way.
So I've never seen any of our decisions come back as resolutions, so I'm not comfortable with
Right.
that at all.
Right.
Right.
And the commissioner's official records are kept, and the minutes and our official vote is there, and all the discussions, if they need to get into the discussions, are there electronically.
Mhm.
And they can ask for that request, and we see that. I agree, there is, if we were to put a written response, it would have the opportunity for somebody to interpret it different than the way that we
exactly.
have it written down.
And
I'm trying to be politically
And I
correct.
didn't have necessarily an issue with how the resolutions themselves were worded. I didn't have necessarily any problems with it. It's just also, for me, the precedent setting that we make a decision and then we also have to come back and pass a resolution as well at a later date.
Mhm.
I did not like that idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's,
So consensus of the board would be that no response, that they use the official minutes and any other information they can get from the official meeting. Consensus?
I kinda like the idea of double work.
So,
I mean, that's
So
essentially
We're
what it
already
is.
doing
Let-
that
let
right
the
now.
I don't like that idea, so just work in double circles instead
let
of
the record show by consensus of the board of commissioners, we're all,
Okay.
that it's official.
thank you.
Very well. So, thank you for bringing that forward and put it in the format so we have that discussion as the board. And that's an official record. All right, next item is, Ann has been moved till the afternoon, right after Mr. Shumway, we had a conflict with that.
David Berman,
Yeah,
Marshall Lease,
yeah, let's go with,
and then
see if we can catch Dave real fast.
we also have the North State Recycling.
Yeah, the recycling, I can do that. Well,
I'll get Mr. Berman for you.
Thank you, Jake.
Can we have another quick commissioner discussion on your liaison with the, please? Liaison
the
with
AOC I have.
Oh, yeah, we can do that too.
Okay, so I wanna go over the commercial lease, as you guys, let me find it. With our landfill out there as, and I would like to have action on this today, I believe you guys will be in support of this. Our landfill, part of our recycling program and, the regular day-to-day operations out there is our metal pile, which is inclusive of many different metals, where we're able to have that recycled and for a price, actually, a revenue stream. And time is of the essence to do this today. You can see there's, and Gail brought this forward, bring it on to the next level. The contract here, also with the certificate of liability insurance. I asked Melanie to follow up with legal counsel and everything, and before legal counsel and the whole work. So I would like to act on this today because it's pertinent for timing out there.
You have any questions?
Just on the contract itself, I'd just like to have yearly renewal.
The yearly.
You're touching, I didn't get into that too far.
It only extends for about 3 months
Yeah,
from now.
what I would like to do is, as we move forward, try to have whoever's our landfill manager work on the program out there, either quarterly or bi-yearly, and find that that's still we can. From where we're at right now, I'm comfortable with this.
So just on this contract though, I don't see where,
I think it's on the
There's
same
no-
page.
huh?
I think it's on the same.
On the second page, do you have the second page?
I don't have
Oh, no, it's right there.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second page.
Pardon me.
On, The expiration is set for, March 1st of 2020.
Okay.
So,
I'm fine with that.
oh, okay.
I didn't put the 2 pages together, sorry.
It's fine.
Well, and I'm not sure I think that's expiration of their liability insurance, I think. I think that what we do need to
Oh,
do,
the policy itself.
I think you've caught exactly what I'd like to have added in here, is that, but an ending date of this contract, I think that's a very good catch. I'm actually surprised I never caught it myself, but that's the reason why we were getting for it. But you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I
think
do, I do, actually, this is the commercial general liability, but,
Yeah.
So I would imagine that once that expired,
What expired?
well, the policy expires.
No, but I'd still like to have it on contract.
But no, the actual picking up of the material for $30 a ton. I mean, I'd like
Because
to
you
get
remember
it
several
covered,
years
but-
ago, metal was $275 a ton. I appreciate what's going on, so don't get me wrong there, but if metal skyrockets again, I don't wanna be selling it at $30.
You wanted
Well, and that actually goes back to what you were saying about maybe the next landfill superintendent being able to operate something like this off of a quarterly basis to be more in line with what the market does in terms of metal prices.
So, for the 3-month date, from this date, 3 months, have that in there. Is that where you were going? I thought I heard 3 months.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, 3 months was because 1,000.
But what you
were looking at the
the
insurance.
only
policy.
problem with doing another 3-month period is I realize it costs some money, to bring equipment in and to process it, to crush it and all that. And so, in 3 months, are they gonna, I know they have enough product to do, but 3 months after that, are they gonna have enough product to do it again?
We're in the middle of winter, it slowed down on the landfill, so the odds are no. I would think almost way in the past, it's about twice a year, or every 6 months, that there would be enough accumulation.
So maybe that's what we should do, is a 6-month period instead of a 3-month.
I would like to go 3 months now, that'll give them time to get this
So have
cleaned
these
up.
expire on maybe April 1st?
And then give a chance for whoever we hire for the operator to be able to work on all the work for their management. Because we're, but that's a good catch.
Just as long as there's some kind of.
So your motion is going to.
So my motion is to accept the contract with the revision of, a 3-month
3 months, so the ending would be
time period.
April 1st, and contingent upon the contract person signing that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Here a second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to enter into contract with North State Recycling, put in, ending date of April 1st for this contract contingent upon, the agreement with North State Recycling. Did I get it right? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. Thank you, guys. That's a good thing. It helps us with our recycling compliance and also its revenue stream. Next item, Jake went to go get Dave. What did he say? Dave, not available.
He didn't say anything. He came in and went back out.
Okay, so Dave and I did have some conversation. We can go ahead forward with this. I was one sitting in the office whenever, Terry Freeman and others came. What we have is Peterson Cat sold to another company. Here it comes now, as we speak. It's just Jake. Just Jake. Is Dave not available?
He had run into jail, so I don't have my phone, so I had to try to reach out to him.
Do you want to go ahead or you want to?
It's no worries.
No, I think we all know what's going on.
I do you did, but for the record, I'll go over it.
It's fine. Go for it. You're good.
Okay, so, this came to us is that there's immediate need through, Red Rock IR1 Group, some high-end electronics, that need to be taken care of and stored. And so, with that said, the timing was perfect as Peterson was moving out, and so this is a special purpose, special consideration agreement with IR1 group. Dave done very good. Get this together. Obviously, we talk guys individually. This will be a good thing. Lease rent monthly is at the maximum of what we charge, no breaks. So that's where it falls into the special considerations. Would entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the commercial lease agreement with the IR1 group.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to enter into the commercial special consideration lease as presented. Further discussion, it has been ran by legal counsel and everything.
Yeah.
Dave, so everything.
Yeah, that's what I understood from Dave as well, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, guys. It's not normal to bring things so time sensitive forward, but
Right.
things happen. Where we at? Departments.
We
Oh,
have
no,
liaison
AOC.
updates.
For AOC, we are going to have some discussion. AOC needs to know if we're going to continue with our person on the legislative committee and the other committees. So discussion on that one. But obviously,
I'm trying to pull that up right now, go ahead.
obviously, just let you know, I'm not the one to be on the legislative committee. James has been. I don't know if Mark has a desire for more than, we get one spot for sure. And there's other ways to also get on the legislative committee. And so I'll let you guys sort of let me know what you guys.
James is good doing it. I'm already gonna be appointed to the natural resources.
Yeah.
Like I talked to Mark Owens yesterday.
So there's a number of options here. Whether or not I'll actually be able to be on those, I can imagine that I will be. But they have the governance, they have health and human services, they have natural resources, public safety, transportation, communities, development, and veterans. Now, I attend as many of those as I can, but a lot of those times their meetings overlap. And so I go to the ones depending on, whatever issues might be going on at the time that I might be able to help with or at least give input for. There's also the legislative committee, the budget and finance committee, and the membership committee. I was on the legislative committee and I worked on a number of the other boards as well,
So we have a legislative committee, one of the things that we definitely get that spot. Those others to be the chair or whatever they're considered in appointment by the incoming president.
yeah,
But
I'm
you
not,
can, but you can be
I can,
on those committees.
right, but I'm thinking about putting my name in if there's a vacancy or
Yeah.
something in the future. Putting my name in that I would be willing to help and serve on those. But I'm looking for maybe a little input from the board as to what do you guys see that might be of utility. We have veterans, we have the transportation and community development, public safety is a big one. Natural resources, of course, you're going to be kind of working on that, Mark. Health and human services and governance. So is there a particular avenue that, because they've got a bunch of check boxes of which ones you have interest in.
Correct. So, and you can set on any and all of them. Brad's opinion is that usually you gravitate to the ones that you have the most interest or most expertise with, and then fill in with the other ones if you're out there and so on. So as far as, I would say legislative committee, we're in consensus that you're going to be the representative from Lake County, you being James. Being on the other committees is commitment by individual commissioners. Yeah. I appreciate what you're asking, though, and I'm trying to sit here and think of what at AOC level, what would be the most benefit for Lake County. And one place I've always pushed was on the natural resources side of Mark's, right, jumping on that. So, and then,
And I'm already on the public lands committee from NACO. And so they kind of go hand in hand, right? And so I would like to do some of the other ones, but I don't want to commit to them because of, you know, how our time is spread out already.
So,
And so,
from my experience, and I believe you guys would say this, they would welcome either one of you or me to sit in any of those committees.
Oh yeah,
Any
they would, at
participation
any
would
point
be
in time,
great.
if anyone shows up, you're always welcome in the room, it's like, yeah, not a problem, I guess,
You just gotta watch out for that roping.
Yeah.
Well, and also if there is a vacancy, say on the Natural Resource Committee, there's potential there for us to vouch for the other one,
Absolutely.
to say, you know, yeah, we'd like to see Mark Alverson, you know, work on that. So, I guess that's what I'm trying to have the discussion here.
Reach out to President Doherty if you
Correct.
have interest.
If you have interest, always reach out to him.
So, consensus of the board for legislative position to be James Williams, Commissioner Williams, and the commissioners will, as far as committees, join what committees that they individually have time.
It's a small part that I play on that committee, I think it's, I think the title is, counties not otherwise not represented. I think is the position that has the vacancy and they assign my name to it. So basically, I'm the fall guy for every other county that doesn't have a seat.
Well, the real positive on the legislative committee is, you know, we have the short session, we have all that. It gives the real voice, it gives Lake County's voice, legislative issues. So appreciate that you're interested in doing that. So that's AOC appointments.
I'm assuming you wanted to stay on that. I didn't ask.
Yeah, no, I'm fine, yeah, I mean, it's highly interesting.
So you was thinking railroad instead of consensus at one point there.
Yeah, pretty much, I kind of felt that, but that's okay, no worries.
Okay, so we have the 1 o'clock timed item with Carl Shumway.
Correct.
And then Ann will be after that to discuss our budget resolutions for tomorrow and our hearing for tomorrow. Liaison updates. Anybody want to start off on the famous liaison updates?
On the airport, DZX Ranch is going to extend the runway. There's just a few minor things that we have to work out. They'll probably start it next year, summer next year, spring next year. So
Okay,
it might even be, I just don't want them in there during the fire season. We've done or haven't started yet, so, but I've made them aware.
so I assume once you get further down, the airport manager with Dave, is we'll see some contractual agreements between Simplot, Lake County, and so on, all that stuff. And I think
We haven't got there yet.
yeah,
But
it's all in there.
they're going to put it into spec that would meet the FAA requirements. And that not only takes away our liability part of it, but if the community does grow and that FAA takes over the airport, it's already up to their specs, so we don't have to redo it over again and stuff.
Well, years ago, I just have a lot of history, whenever we took over the airport, from the state airport, we went into contractual agreement with Simplot to cover maintenance and different things. And that sort of went, where now there's not an actual contract on any maintenance or anything, it's as projects come forward, we ask for assistance and help. Extended the runway and everything, and whenever you're talking paving, preservation, and all this stuff, that airport doesn't create revenue stream or anything, it doesn't qualify for a lot of different things, so as you're negotiating, some support and some contractual obligations, and that type of investment, you really get it smart as you work forward on that. Because of, the story still is several thousands of dollars and different things, find money to get it on the ground, but it's preservation later on. Becomes challenging. So, thoughts for you to work on. Talking airport and extension of Paisley Airport and preservation in the future, contractual agreements and stuff. Just talking. And we already approved the lease with,
Sorry, I was dealing with the backup generator issues.
No apologies, you're good.
so boy, was that perfect timing for a department update.
Department update?
Does anybody have a department update?
Sure.
Department update? See how I got us out of liaison update?
What are you
I don't
doing?
have more to get.
So we'll start in the juvenile department. We're fully staffed and we continue to be fully staffed. We do have 2 youth in detention right now for some behaviors that would otherwise put the community at risk. I can give more detail of that another time. So we have 2 in detention. Our caseloads they're getting active. We're starting to get some more youth authority kids returning to our community. So since we're here and on the ground, we're working with those kids. They're starting to become a little too relaxed. So we're working with our youth authority counterparts and trying to reel it back in a little bit. Otherwise, things are going great. Jim Nickel is spread pretty thin throughout all 3 schools. He continues to be active, not all 3 schools, all 3 school districts, I should say. And things are really moving. Things are looking good in the juvenile department. On the adult side, we still are moving and shaking. Our treatment court is still successful. Our staff are working hard. We're right now in the thick of things of delivering firewood, so we're going to be active in the community delivering firewood with our work group. So things are on the up and up right now.
Good too.
Thank you. Appreciate it, sir.
And I can give you guys each a rundown as to why we have youth in detention.
Okay. Thank you.
Outside of this, second.
Mr. Berman, sir.
I just wanted to let you guys know a few things. We did get awarded our Parks and Rec grant for the Anna Reservoir project. We, just for your notes, I'm betting 1,000 on Parks and Rec grants, just so you know. So, toot my own horn, so.
You're 1 for 1.
No, no.
I'm just kidding.
I'm winning my 4 for 4. It's my 4th one since I've been here. Parks are getting better. Airport, you touched base on the paving, the Connect project out there.
I didn't.
There's a few things we're still arguing with the FAA about, some of the tie down stuff that they required us to do, but we're getting a lot of flack from the pilots. They made them too wide, so now they gotta extend the tie downs. It's pretty frustrating for them, because the longer your tie downs are, the more the wind can grab it and do that, so they're not comfortable with, they don't like it. Because they're worried about damaging their planes. But anyway, we're wrapping that up. Connect Oregon with the railroad, we're 95% clean out, just finance part of it. We've got the construction side of the ties, it's all done, completed. In the regional solution, the bridge, we had that extended until the 31st of December. We got all the material bought, but weather permits won't let it, or weather is a factor on getting some of that stuff done. We can't do it until it warms up a little bit, so. Sorry, I'm just jumping all over the place, but I haven't given you guys an update for a while on some of that stuff.
You're good. One thing I wanted to touch on, being we were talking airport, earlier today, we had BLM Forest Service here, and they're talking about the Paisley Airport no longer having the tank there for the quarry. They're taking that out. That's what they're talking about. Me personally, I'm very disappointed.
They're gonna leave the water tank in the well.
Yeah, I get it, compliance issues because of the heavy metals and different things, they have to have containment things.
Stormwater cleanup, all that other stuff.
All that stuff, but
Compliance stuff.
I encourage them to relook at that, just because of, whenever there's fires out there, it's really nice to have.
That was our fire 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, and they, later on in the meeting, not pertaining to Paisley, but they talked about how fast Heart Mountain burned in the biggest fires it was. So 18 minutes turns into 40 minutes turnaround time.
Yep.
I just think of previous fires in that area, so as they're talking with you, just want to let you know I encourage you to relook at that. I don't know what kind of containment and that kind of stuff would take, but sometimes we have to sort of think outside the box.
They were talking like they wanted to prioritize on both the Klamath and the Lakeview sites for their seats and be able to have their material stored in those two locations, and they just weren't gonna focus on Paisley for now. But it's possible that if we were able to find an avenue, I think, and this is where you're going with it, is find a funding resource or
The
something.
county find the fundings out here, saying, or whatever.
Maybe not the county, but if we were able to find a path towards facilitating, keeping them there at the Paisley site, I think that would be really good for the county.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, they talked about having their mobile unit, that they would move up there, but it takes us a 24 to 48 hour setup, is what my understanding was.
The Heart Mountain fire was the one they fired.
Correct.
At 25.
And I watched the Anna fire climb to the top of Winter Rim in less than 2 minutes. So,
Right.
As they're going forward, if we can be as a partner to try to encourage them to try to look at it, not the county go fund it or anything, but if there's other funding available, or just try to, I put it in the thoughts of insurance. We all pay insurance, we never do want to have to use it, but it's there for a reason.
The bad thing is if they take it out, more than likely they'll never be.
They never come back. Correct. Yeah. So, anyways, just to put you in the loop, because that means.
And I have a note on the airport, well, I'm thinking about it, we also have the regional solution grant for the airport. It's almost done, we just have some internal plumbing inside that we gotta finish up, we got the backup generator in, it's all up and running, works great. So, there's a lot of stuff going on that I haven't really give you guys updates on lately, so. That's what I'm thinking, bro.
Good deal. Thanks.
Any questions for me?
What's the plan for Anna with that grant?
As far as what we plan on doing,
Yeah, we answered that, refer to the email they sent out with a full description.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
That wasn't me,
I tried not to go there today.
we're all CC'd, I think. So,
We were.
Dave, next time, can you include Mark in that email?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, put it
no,
back
that's,
on me,
that's excellent.
That's a good question, Mark. I just
Three picnic pavilions area, kinda like what Drew's has covered, with barbecue stands. And each pavilion built 3 of them, 2 on the north side, 1 on the south side of the parking lot. We're re-chip sealing the parking lot with a seal over it where minimal paint lines. We'll level rock where the pavilions are on the north and south side of the reservoir to make it where those ruts are, make where it don't rut no more. When we do that, we're gonna try to where it'll drain, where the water will run off as best we can, with what we got. And then, little enhancements to the boat dock. And the total cost was like $78,000. I don't have it in front of me, it's right there, that we got for the project. And then signage, of course.
Normally I'd tell you thank you, but after all the comments, I'm not saying.
I gotta be cautious when I get Mark in that.
Yes, that's on television, you said that, so.
Okay.
When election time comes.
Wow.
Okay, so we're going to, thank you for the department update.
Yeah,
We're done.
That's about
move along here, we'll be liaison that updates this afternoon, we have Jay here, and I'd like to go into an executive session now.
Okay,
Wait, what are we going into?
Want me to change this?
So,
you wanna go into executive session?
let me get to my numbers here, we're gonna go under executive session under 192.6. We're out of executive session at 18 minutes to 12. No decisions made in executive session. Would entertain a motion. Make a motion, either one.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'm not gonna make the motion because of my friendship.
Okay, I'll make the motion as liaison. I'll make a motion to offer the landfill superintendent job to Buddy Nest effective Saturday, 21st of December. Salary range $61,080, that's the annual salary. And that HR and the department that he works for now will work together on 2 weeks transition from one department to the other.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, motion carries. Jay would, being at the hallways talk, would you, reach out to Mr. Nest and give him our offering? Yeah. Let us know if he accepts or not.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Alright, thank you.
All right, so, moving on, we get 15 minutes in here before lunch break and come back at 1. Liaison updates.
Yeah, okay.
Did you have more, Mark?
I think that's, I've sent letters on House Bill, Senate Bill 1614, which is the Berkeley Wyden Crapo bill on being able to take biomass off of federal lands. So, places like Red Rock or anybody can take
That federal material would be utilized.
that federal material can be utilized without the penalties or
They would get the tax.
they get the tax
That's awesome.
breaks. And so, I'm trying to get other commissioners on board and write letters and that sort of thing, so.
That's awesome.
And on the PILT and the SRS,
So I want to go back to the other,
Okay.
I'm trying to get other counties, yes, the 11 western states that's affected out here, like your NACO setting, NACO. As far as you can get, there is some resistance at the congressional level by some. I can't remember exactly what it triggers, but you utilize your NACO site if it's appropriate to on that, because that is so key to the health, and as we push for the healthy forest site, it's a tragedy whenever we have this many acres of publicly owned forest and it doesn't qualify for renewal.
well, the thing is that Red Rock has to drive clear across the Fremont Wainema, they can't take a sticker wood off.
Well, they can take it, but it doesn't qualify for the
Right,
RINs.
and-
I can't remember what RINs stand for, but it's just ridiculous not to get into it.
Well, it makes it feasibly, it doesn't make it feasible for them.
Yeah.
So. And then on the PILT and the SRS payments, really pushing for a 2-year SRS. And a 10-year PILT. And so that's actually looking very well. So hopefully we'll know.
Okay.
Pretty soon.
I want to follow up with that update on an update of my own, as I'm liaison to the treasurer's office. As of this morning, we received a update from Jonathan Sheffield at NACO, that we have secured the full funding for PILT in the fiscal year of 2020 omnibus spending package as
I didn't
well
know
as
that.
an additional 2-year extension of SRS. We will have a full analysis of the omnibus to share with you later this week. So,
That's awesome. I didn't know that. Did
So-
you guys have a
no, this is
I
hot off
know.
the press.
Sent it to us during the meeting.
It came in during the meeting, so this is hot off the press. This
That
just came
is
in.
awesome.
It came in around 10:30.
So SRS is secure rural schools. And
Yeah.
PILT is payment in lieu of taxes, which is, you know that already, so.
And then, so anyway, awesome news. I just wanted to make sure that we threw that out during the meeting. I guess from now on, all we have now is to support Wyden's endowment fund as a permanent solution for SRS. But with that 2-year extension for SRS, I think it's a really good deal.
If you could ever get that permanent funding, it would take that argument out and everybody could put their energy towards the healthy forest and resilient
Correct.
forest and all that. And so the Wyden proposal to get that permanent funding, well, put your time towards that, guys. And.
Well, that gives us we can plan.
Yeah, and if there comes a time that it was pertinent that we considered anybody to represent us or anything, we have a past commissioner that's very versed on that. Commissioner Shannon, if there becomes a need or something to utilize him, permanent funding would be huge for our road department, huge. Yeah. I'm okay.
No, I was just thinking, I need to meet with Dan on that very subject again. So I can fill it in.
Sounds good. Any other updates?
Come from me, James. That's good news though.
Good.
Thank you for bearing good news.
So I've been attending the EOCCO board meetings, following up with those. It's been, the Eastern Oregon Coordinated Care Organization has been going through a little bit of a fluctuation right now. They've got a lot of things that are still kind of, leveling out and stabilizing, so they're still working on it, but, overall, things are pretty good. They didn't meet many of their incentives this year, or at least they probably won't, not for Lake County. Last year was a lot better, but this year they've been kind of struggling. Mental health, lots of stuff happening with that. Of course, later on today, we'll probably get more into that topic. Roads, being that we're talking about permanent support for our roads. Kevin Hawk and I, road superintendent and I are going to have a meeting tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, on Thursday, with the Forest Service to discuss just some potential there for working together across agencies and try and work on some of our access roads in the county to access those public lands. And just a lot of discussion around that. I'll hopefully have a better report for you guys in January as to how that goes.
Essentially, IGA is the Forest Service on those things. Where we connect to the national forest is where the years I went to get the flat dollars and everything. And that's where a lot of times on the county portion of the roads, you can get the monies such as Dog Lake, East Bay, and also we save the coverage dollars out in the flush on the overlay.
Correct.
Chipsa. They changed that flat rule.
Yes, they did.
2 years back, and they're changing again on some of it, but, as you're working with those roads that enter into the forest, that potential, you're the AOC and transportation is that, there's, potential in the flat dollars.
Right.
Always keep that.
Absolutely, and I think some of those changes kind of shocked everyone. I think it bothered a few folks, but I think there might be some opportunity there even with that. I think that kind of took the wind out of everyone's sails, some of those more recent changes to the flat funding. But I guess what I would probably try and push on you guys is that there are some other changes coming forward, that there might be some more potential for the county. And to have a better relationship with the Forest Service and keep those roads in better condition. But I will have a better update for you in the future.
You're not saying we're gonna eliminate some roads and give them back to the Forest Service?
No, but I really can't speak on all of it
So, I
right
was at
now
the
because I
Trails
don't
meeting
have all the info
yesterday.
yet.
I was at a Trails meeting yesterday. You know, we're trying to make sure we are inclusive of everyone. As far as ATV, hiking, biking, horses. The four-wheel drive, the Jeep community, do you know how many miles of roads they have for Jeeps? 11. That's it.
But you're getting right back to the travel management plan that I fought so hard, and they said
And
we
it's
can
because
amend
of
it
the
at any
travel.
time. Getting it amended is, that's just.
Anyways,
Keep on myself.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, ask me some of the history that I might have some of the tools for you to make some arguments. I mean, I knew, back in the day, I knew the travel management plan was verbatim, or the rural master plan. I'm sure I still have some of that information.
One more update, telecommunications. We had our Internet Improvement Committee meeting yesterday. I was one of the only people who showed up. Apparently, we didn't have that great of a turnout, but we did have some very good discussion with Stephen at the hospital about what our potential. We've got a ton of potential actually ahead of us, and what we're looking at right now is a way to create redundancy across the whole county. We've got kind of a gap where service comes into the Christmas Valley area and service goes up to Paisley, but there's nothing in between. And so we're looking at a potential now to try and connect those two. And we're looking at a wireless connection because there's just no feasible way right now to get any kind of a hard line in.
That's fine, I appreciate that you're looking at this.
Yeah.
Wireless.
So wireless is what we're looking at. We've got topography charts and everything as to where the best line of sight is, being able to connect with
So
that
I'm-
Indian.
where you're trying to connect
Paisley and the Christmas Valley, and we're working with Day Wireless actually. They gave us a proposal to our committee.
Have you ever drove up to the site that we have with BLM?
Coghlan,
Yeah, with Coghlan, yeah.
out near Paisley.
It's between Valley Falls and Paisley. I don't know if
Yes.
the line of sight gets there, but past commissioners myself wanted to observe that power line going up to it.
Right.
And everything.
Yep.
It would be great if that had some potential use there.
There is potential there.
Oh,
And we have that on our list.
I
And
wanna
that's
make
kind
sure
of
that
our Paisley site as far as if
Good.
there are some possibilities there. I don't wanna get into things too much because obviously we have a number of different
I just wanna make sure
contractors
you
that
know
are,
that we
yeah.
had a lease agreement.
Yep, absolutely. I talked to Dave about it yesterday actually.
Good deal.
And we're looking at Dead Indian and what the potential is up there. But basically, without getting too far into it, we wanna try to get maybe a third party to be a good go-between between LS and Network that operates everything on the north, that they're the operator for the line coming into the north end. And then Hunter Communications that goes up into Paisley. And those two tend to be a little bit in competition with each other. But we're looking at a way to make that connection nonetheless and to try and create redundancy so we have an actual line going all the way up through the entire county because of that whole dead zone between Paisley and Silver Lake and Christmas Valley area where you just don't get anything. So that's what we're looking at, and I think it would actually serve the hospital, it'd serve Lakeview and everyone else as well because it would create that loop and that redundancy.
Good work.
So I'll have more information for you guys as we develop, but anyway, that's what we're looking at. That's it for me.
Okay, for me, last Friday, Dave Rolls, myself, and Ann was on the phone with a Business Oregon Commission meeting. This has to do with SIP, the Strategic Investment Plan that we have have already approved as a board with Obsidian on the North Lake development up there for North Lake area development. It had to go before the commission for their approval. Like I said, we weren't in attendance in Portland. Obsidian was present there, but we were on by phone. They appreciated us being on by phone. Art Fish done a great job of representing, pushing it forward, Dave Gold, myself, and it was voted on unanimously to accept that. That was very good, a very good thing as that develops. They developed that up there and everything that's in place over 20 years, rough numbers, that could be $12 million in taxation. So that gives, if the development happens, a lot of opportunity for budgeting and different things like that and so on. So that was a good thing. Railroad, Chrissy Grant, continue weekly meetings with stakeholders within the railroad. So we have those. And we are working with the FRA. Challenges continue to be there on pushing for our match to be there as far as not only our request to the Oregon legislature for the 3.5, working on that issue, trying to bring that forward, continuing on that. But the other matches written into the grant, some challenges with the FRA, not fully acknowledging and accepting that at this point, but we have calls set up with FRA. We have one tomorrow, not tomorrow, today's Tuesday, Friday. Okay. Trying to get this week over with apparently. So encourage you to stay in touch with Ann, also for updates on this.
What's the FRA meeting again?
That's the Chrissy Grant side of it. So the $5.6 million Chrissy Grant, and then we have the match that's roughly about $5 million. We have Red Rock Spur as part of it and different ones. To get the notice to proceed, they're not considering some of those that we have down this match because it's taken so long to get through this categorical exclusion on the legal process. And so we're really pushing this, yes, especially like the Red Rock side of it. It's they done all the work, they've done all the wetland study, they've done all that before that spur ever being built, that it should qualify. So working on that, it's a lot of time. Commend Ann and others, Red Rock, and everybody that, Business Oregon and others, Daryl Anderson that we hired, everything that we're working on to bring this together. But I encourage you guys to stay abreast of all of it as you can with Ann, just to follow the right way to proceed. But seems like every corner gets to be an S corner on this for some reason,
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of
There's a
limbs, and you have to kind of pull them all in to get things to work.
and we're getting there, and it's I don't know if we're interesting is the right one to use. Other thing is just to update and maybe an update too, but on airport solar and on Garrett, I've done some individual letters and everything to some state agencies. And so both of those sites are at a level of production that needed to be done by December 31st for there to be taxation. And if they weren't in a level of production by that date, then by the agreement on the pilot program, taxation would start for a whole other year. Both of them is produced, so that taxation is going to come in this year, which is very good, substantial to the taxing districts and to the counties. That's a really positive thing. With that,
The airport really helps the airport too.
well, and I'll throw some rough numbers out. The airport, we know that the lease agreement is about $64,000, and it goes up to $100 something a year just for the land lease. The taxation, county's part of the taxation on airport alone is roughly 40, roughly 90,000. And then you have your other taxing districts out there that also get money. We're about 29% of the total, 300 some odd thousand dollars from taxation per year. And so, and that's per megawatt, $7,000 per megawatt. And so there's some opportunities as we move forward as more revenues come in. You know, we lose some revenues here and there. We'll go through our assumptions later on our budgeting. See more. But just wanted to say some very positive things up here. But we all work together as trying to do things around here to come back to the citizens quite a bit eventually through services on the ground. I believe that's enough from me. 3 minutes past. You're fine. All right. So we will recess until we'll be back at 1 o'clock. All right, we'll come back into session. We took a short break, lunch break. Our next item on the agenda is we've had a request from Mr. Shumway to come before the board, and the only information we actually have is mental health revenue streams. So, do you have any papers or anything to submit or anything, or just one of the
Yes, I do. First off, I'll give you a copy of the agreement that we have between the two taxing districts. We can refer to that later. And I think I'm speaking loud enough, I can sit here.
You can.
come on up, Carl. But it's being recorded and everything. It. And we bring another chair up. Would you like to?
Yes.
Yeah, Jay used that one.
Thank you.
Anyway, good afternoon. I'm Carl Shumway from I'm just Carl Shumway, I guess. And with me today is Marie Maines from Lapine Community Health Center. Anyway, I serve on a board whose obligation is to provide facility for primary care and contract with other provider services. I'm here today representing that North Lake Health District Board because we have concerns and questions over how and where mental health services are funded and provided in our health district. But first, a little history. In 2000, voters in the North End elected a board and agreed to funding for primary care, thereby establishing Lake County's second health district. Those first years learning how we could provide services and what the scope of those services of any kind would be was challenging. It didn't take long before we all became aware that mental health services were needed as a part of primary care. During those years, funding for mental health was given to Lutheran Family Services. So the quest by our then provider staff was trying to work with the Lutheran family for those services. After many years, we believe the results from those efforts were almost zero. Commissioner Winters might be able to correct me if I'm wrong because he was here for most of those years. Other than about 2014, for a short period of time, they, Lutheran Family Services, did send up somebody occasionally, but it was unreliable and short-lived. Other than that, through all those years, we don't remember North Lake Health District receiving $1 or one service from Lutheran Family Services for mental health. Fast forward to 2017-18, Lake County Commissioners are Lake County's public and mental health authority and have the authority and obligation to appoint or contract with someone or some agency to provide mental health services to Lake County. We now know that you have contracted with Lake Health District to provide those services, possibly for a 5-year period.
Contracting with Lake Health District creates issues for both Lake County's health districts. One of them being, there are rules preventing a health taxing district from providing services in another health taxing district without an agreement for those services. I'm not here to ask the commissioners to get involved in those contracts or agreements. That's the job of the taxing districts. But we do want to let you know that representatives from both boards have met back and forth, and we do have an agreement. In those conversations, reaching that agreement, our understanding with Lake Health District would start by providing services in the county annex building. Meanwhile, North Lake Health District would remodel our facility so the services could be provided at our facility as per our conversations. We remodeled our facilities in the summer of 2018, making 2 rooms available by September that year. In addition to our remodel, Lake Health District, I believe, attached to our fiber, installing communication capabilities to the rooms, and also from our building to the county annex, and I believe to a Lake Health District facility in Lakeview or beyond. And that's all good. But after almost 1.5 years, they have not moved to our clinic to provide the services. One of our concerns is that your actions contracting with Lake Health District, passing all funding without any input from North Lake Health District, has left us stranded with no monetary leverage to encourage Lake Health District to comply. No monetary leverage to encourage Lake Health District to comply with our agreement. Remember, these are countywide funds and Lake County has 2 health districts. At the very least, there should be some writings ensuring that both districts are still in agreement with their required health district agreement, because it is required. And that should be done before any funding is allowed. Another concern we have is, why does the county continue to allow Lake Health District to use the annex when there's an agreement in place to provide those services out of a North Lake Health District facility? In short, we are not happy with what's going on now, and it seems a shame because we only get to have our say after somebody else has all the money, and only with who has the money. Coupled with the county competing with us for a place to provide the services, our hands seem tied to put pressure on Lake Health District to comply with our agreement. And that's why I'm here today, just to let you know that we feel, maybe unknowingly, the actions you take affect the services we think can be provided in the North Lake Health District. Remember, this funding is for Lake County, and there are 2 health districts.
So Carl, you gave me the opening there by using my name in there. And yes, I've been on for a long time, along with previous boards. And to let you know, we've been committed for years to have services in North Lake. And you missed a couple of things. Yes, Lutheran Community Service, Lutheran Family Services changed too. We also had Harney Behavioral in between there.
Yeah, what?
Harney Behavioral that we contracted
Harney
with.
Behavioral Health, yeah.
Yeah, that we contract with. The county operated it, and now we're under contract with Lake Health District. We've been committed, and one of the past board members that I've worked with is sitting in the audience here, and I will verify that we've been committed to getting services up north. Now, during the Lutheran Community Service time, Lutheran Family Service time, because they changed during the last 20 years, the services wasn't what they are today. We've worked hard to make sure there's presence up there. It seems as if you're looking for dollars. As a board of commissioners, what I've looked for is getting the services on the ground in the community. Yes, they do use the annex under the contract we have with them now. And they use that to put more money towards services, to get services on the ground in that community up there. And we do represent all of Lake County. And that's the reason why we do that. Now then, if the health district wants to go into agreement with your health district to rent space, they will make that decision through you guys. Like you said, you don't want us to get in the middle of your negotiations with them. But I'm sort of hearing the other side is that you're telling us we want part of the money.
No, what we want is a say in how the money is, when you transfer all the money to Lake Health District, which is one health district, we're not considered, so that you can see, I gave you the contract. The agreement with Lake Health District is a requirement that they provide those services out of our facility. They're not. We've been trying for a year and a half to get those facilities provided out of our facility so that we would have a connection with our primary care provider. So that there's an interaction between mental health and primary health, which is needed. And we don't, and Marie, I'll let Marie speak for the clinic, but we don't see that. We have no indication that mental health services are provided to the people in our clinic, and I got some information here I can kind of pass on to you, just for your information. But we're not looking for the dollars, we're just looking for equal say on getting mental health services provided to our district. We're not looking for the dollars.
Carl, could you maybe expound a little bit on kind of your concerns and how you feel that having the services provided in the same facility as primary care, how that actually serves the population?
It may, in part, it may not better the service, but it probably would enhance the connection between the primary care and the mental health services provided. Right now, there's a total disconnect.
And that manifests itself how? Visibly.
Manifests itself into, we don't see that the patrons in the north end of the county have access to local mental health services. How can they get, if someone was gonna go and receive mental health services, how would they get there? First, probably it's gonna come from a referral. There's no connection between the referrals and primary health and back and forth. Sometimes mental health patrons need to go to primary care. There's an absolute total disconnect there, and that's the big concern. It's not necessarily where the services were provided, but
your concern is that there are no referrals either way.
There are some referrals, however, the patients are either having to do telehealth or come to Lakeview for those services.
And so I'm trying to think back because I am not a mental health expert or a hospital expert, but there is some rules around whenever people are going to mental health of being able to refer them on to physical health and that. So educate me a little bit. What you're saying, you're not getting referrals. Is there certain components of the mental health side of it that they are able to refer to the physical health side? Because I think there's some guidelines and some uniqueness to that, I've been told, and I don't know the matrix. So enlighten me a little bit. Let me know what's not happening to refer to the physical health side for the clinic up there.
So for the physical health side, we would refer to mental health, as needed, but on the mental health side, as they're treating those patients for their mental health issues, a lot of times there's physical issues as well that need to be treated. So having that integration between the two, we find very valuable for the patients. We have this in Deschutes County for our patients. We have a primary care provider embedded in the Deschutes County Behavioral Health Office. And just that integration is very good for the patients.
So you're talking at presence, it's not necessarily a referral, presence that they get done with mental health, they could.
It's a lot of warm handoffs in the moment as people need the help.
So you're getting.
So it's still a referral, but as you say, warm handoff.
Yeah.
By having that
Then
presence
it
of primary care.
then it turns into the referral. After that warm handoff, that introduction between the two.
Yeah, I think there's some pretty strict guidelines on some of that, not being an expert on just what I've been told, but so where I'm getting to is if mental health was a presence in the North Lake Clinic up there, then you're looking for those warm handoffs. What you're looking for.
Integration to be able to help the patient to the fullest.
So have you sat down with the exact same thing you're talking about with the hospital board and the CEO of the hospital that we have our contract with, and talk about the synergies and how
Our conversations have been with Charlie Treat. Charlie Treat is the gentleman that signed our agreement, and he represents the Lake Health District, the Lake Health Hospital. So that's who our conversations have been with, and he's been to our board. We've been not at a board meeting, but at other gatherings here with our board representatives, and all of this stuff has been discussed since 2016.
So I would encourage not only that, but he works directly for a board, and I would encourage to get on the agenda with the board. And I may be wrong on this, but maybe it's a discussion with the suggestion of synergies, the complementary side of it, Carl.
You're hitting on the issue. We haven't been to the board, but the board certainly was aware of our agreement when we discussed it and all this time period of having these oral and written agreements. I have several here, bringing us up to date, have not brought us to Lake Health District honoring what our agreement and understanding was. And I think, and our board has discussed it for months. What can we do to put pressure on Lake Health District to honor our agreement? We thought, well, let's follow the money. And that leads us here. Because the money for mental health is funneled through here. And it was funneled through here to one of Lake County's health districts, with the other health district not being involved in any requirements of service, any validation of services provided. We feel that we've been left out of the loop, and so we can't there's no more, I don't know what we can do to put more pressure on Lake Health District without starting here.
Okay, so you have an agreement for space. Is that what you just brought before?
But the agreement is for the service provided.
So I'm trying, and this is off the cuff, I'm trying to remember back as we went into contractual agreements and everything with Lake Health District. Doesn't our North Lake Health District have to agree to have a presence of mental health being provided up there?
We have to have that agreement, and we have that.
So your board has agreed to that.
But
this that you're talking about here is a separate agreement for its presence in.
It covers both. Or if you read the second paragraph on that legal agreement I gave you, it states that the services would be provided in our facility.
The Wellness Center practitioner shall provide services as determined by the Lake District Hospital, allowing reasonable vacation, sick days, unsafe conditions. Wellness Center practitioner shall be responsible for and provide any and all license required by the state of Oregon. I mean, it goes down through the services and as well as the rental agreement. Just took a picture of the contract and I put it on my screen so Mark could read it. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
Oh,
wanted him to be able to read it.
And I might clarify something else with Brad is that I mentioned your name in my statement, not for anything derogatory. It says, do you have any recall of any services that was provided other than what I said?
Yeah, and so I gave you exactly, you gave me the opening, and very dedicated. I speak for the whole board.
Yeah.
Over the years.
And I think the intent and everything was good. You remember Pat Woodnow, you're working on this, like like a bulldog to try to get those services. But the end result is, no, we did not get those services in the north end of the county.
But I don't know if I agree with that, because I worked for the juvenile department for 2.5 years. And I referred many students to the mental health up there, and they received care. And so what I'm not understanding is they have, I think they have 3 full-time and 1 part-time person working there. So the services are there. And so what I'm trying to track with you is, when you're saying you're not receiving services, isn't quite right. It's you're not receiving services under the name of the North Lake Health District.
I give you some paperwork, I don't know who wants it.
It's hard to review everything. Carl's the kind of
I understand that, and it takes a while to understand some of this. It has for me too. But when I complain with Mr. Treat,
It's Twait.
Huh?
It's Twait.
Twait, about the concerns we had, then he forwarded that information there showing that he was providing healthcare services in the north end of the county, like Mark is referring to. But if you'll take and put those numbers together, you'll see there's over 600 patients there, or about 600 patients that services were billed for. And how can that be when none of those referrals there was not one referral from the Lapine Community Health Service during that period of time? Those aren't services provided to the people in the north end of the county, even though there's referrals.
Well, I think your number 600 is wrong, because a lot of these are the same people going back time after time, so those numbers, I don't want that number to get.
I think on the back page I have the numbers, the back page of the last page, the right numbers on that. That's a copy, maybe they're not there. But anyway, those numbers just didn't make any sense to us at all. That how could that amount of services be provided when we had no awareness or connection with primary care? Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's our concerns on that.
So do you make referrals to the mental health?
Our behavioral health consultant, does as needed, yes.
Do they go to the provider in Lake County?
They go to, the behavioral health person at the units. Sometimes they have to end up doing telehealth. And then, a lot of times they have to come back up here to Lakeview.
So just a little history is quite a challenge whenever we changed and we went with the health district to contract to do mental health. So today we're sitting here, and we have a contract with Lake District Hospital, whatever their official name is, contractually to do mental health, separate from the physical health. And now I hear that North Lake Health Clinic wants to be part of the mental health services. Am I tracking correctly?
No.
You don't want a contract or anything, you just want them to be a presence in the.
No, you have a contract, basically. And correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, and I was just up there this last Friday, I went by the annex, and was trying to understand a little bit of what was going on. You guys spent, how much money did you spend on that remodel about a year and a half ago?
Well, I think we spent we wrote checks for about $8,000 for a lot of the specialty items because it's for sound absorption things. And I donated the labor, most of the labor.
And so, and right now those rooms are
vacant. And I might add that Lake Health District, I believe, spent $20,000 in that communication stuff, plus $600 a piece for 2 phones in those rooms. So that's what I said, all of the remodeling, everything that Lake Health District did to prepare all this stuff so that the services could be provided there, that was all well and good. We weren't really well to that point, but from there on, we don't see the services for the people in the north end of the county. Maybe the people that's in the annex building are providing services, but we don't see it being for local. But it's just, we're not happy with how it's going, and we're trying to put pressure on them
And
to straighten it out. That's where we're at.
and where did you get these numbers?
From Charlie.
And were these supposed to be representing the number of people on the north end, or are they representing all service providers?
It's a copy of services provided, and no, it does not say that they were provided in the north end.
So you actually don't have a way of knowing what services are being provided on the north end.
Correct.
Just trying to understand.
What,
Asking.
well, we have a contract with the health district to provide services. They have to go through state audits, they have to go through all the things. And the numbers of the number of clients that come through, they have all those numbers. And I don't know.
Well, I suppose.
We're sort of getting pulled in a rug between you and our contract.
Yeah, and we don't wanna do that.
And
I understand.
that's not where I'm
And
comfortable.
we don't want you there either.
But I tell you, we pass our audit on numbers and our finance and all that. Carl, we do put that money over to the provider, to the contract side of it. I would not think that there would be any reason why they wouldn't help you or disclose to you the numbers of people that are served in North Lake. That's one thing we've pushed for all the years, is to get services up there. And so that's one thing, if you're asking for those numbers and not getting them, we'll ask for those. That's simple enough. Because if there is services that's happening up there, not
Yeah.
only from our contract.
We know
side, but I
there's
believe there's
service being
a private element to this up there also.
There's some really good people up there in our mental health offices. I spent time with them just on Friday.
And we're totally workable.
Yeah.
But we don't see the connection for, let's say, the local people or the Lapine Community Health Center's primary care services. We don't see the connection there. And it's like Maria said, if there's someone that is scheduled to see or to have mental health services, then they're referred down here. Why aren't they referred up there?
Mhm.
If they're from there, why weren't they referred there?
Well, I have to echo that a little bit because I have had complaints about people on the north end having to drive all the way down to Lakeview for a doctor's appointment when they wanna know why, if it was something minor, they could have handled it up there at the clinic.
That wasn't our agreement.
So I wanna go back real quickly to something that you were saying earlier and something in the contract that you just gave us, and I didn't see, I mean, there's an agreement in place, but I never saw a dollar figure for what you guys were charging as far as rent for those 2 rooms.
Under that agreement, that legal agreement that
I haven't read it.
you have there, it states there, I think in 3 different sections in that contract, that the rental of what they would pay for rent would be handled separate from the agreement of that they would provide the services. In other words, the rent could change, but we didn't want the service to change. So we can negotiate the rental fee separate from their agreement of providing the services.
Has there been a rental agreement negotiated?
No, because we've never got a response back from Lake Health District, so finally, we sent Lake Health District a bill. And our bill was for $200 a month for each room. And the bill would have started in September 2018, and that Our billing was accompanied by a letter from our school district with concerns about the services up there. It included a letter from the Pine Community Health Center with concerns of how the services were provided. And it included a letter from the Lake Health District Board of our concerns. There's four things that accompanied that letter, the Lake Health District, and we've not had a response. So this is one of the reasons we're here today. We kind of feel like we have run the gamut on trying to get Lake Health District to either answer or clarify or provide some services that are real for us to see for the people that reside in the North Lake Health District without having to come here for those services.
I hear you, Carl. I'm kind of going through this other. We also, with the annex agreement, we have that was signed in. I think it was in July of 2018 for 5 years lease agreement with the annex and mental health. The mental health could have their facilities there in the annex building for a 5-year period. There's nothing in here that I was able to find when I first heard about this saying that they have to stay there for 5 years. But we're currently charging about $450 per month for the rooms there. So you're charging $200 a month,
Or 400 for the 2 rooms.
400 for the 2 rooms, 200 per room. That's $600 a year. Really difference that you'd be willing to go cheaper. And what you're saying is you haven't had a response as far as maybe an even better negotiated price. And would you be open to that?
Here.
Do you think your board would be open to negotiating that price down even lower or something?
I think our board is open to negotiate for anything. We're not trying to.
I'm just trying to get a better picture of what you're asking from us and what you're pitching to us, and we're trying to get a better idea of the picture here. Because I guess where we come into this is because we are leasing the annex building to them for $450 a month. But
I think your board should be very much aware that we have a contract with Lake Health District to provide the services in our facility. And I think it's only fair that when you enter into an agreement, so the dollars are passed to one health district, then I think it's only appropriate that both health districts are aware of the conditions that you may impose on them, whether they're requirements from the state or from you or wherever. We should be a part of that. We are a part of where the services are supposed to go.
So this is twofold. And as we've agreed to contract out mental health and to go with the Lake District Hospital, we've also done it with public health also. This contract that's with the county doesn't acknowledge the public health side. As we've been trying to keep services on the ground, we're not charging for public health presence in the annex at this time. It's all inclusive on there. The reason why it went up to that amount was just to cover our cost. It wasn't to make money off of it. We're not out there to be in competition for rent. We the board at the time, was to get the services on the ground for just our cost of operation of that facility up there. So we can get in that argument about who's making money off of what.
Yeah.
That's not important. We get services on the ground. The disconnect here is that 2 health districts need to sit down and work this out. Our play is we have a contract with this one here. You're trying to enhance the warm handoff and the referrals, and I get it if people aren't getting referred to there for simple things. I can't speak to it if simple things are not. Why they're having to come down Lakeview, I can't speak to that. But the contractor we have, they can. And so those questions need to go between you and them, Carl. We can try to facilitate, get you that meeting with them, and appreciate it and everything, but truly, that contract is between you guys and them. Our contract is for services on the ground. So the disconnect is the communications between the two health districts.
Do you think it's beneficial for you to have knowledge of our agreements?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's mainly what you're trying to do, Carl, is just to educate us on the fact that this agreement actually exists.
And now I'll make your
We
day.
appreciate that.
I'll make your day by letting you know that same agreement has to be in place for public health services. And it's not.
Absolutely. It's
It's
not.
not.
So all the years of us being a presence in North Lake for public health, and since we contract with them,
No,
you're not.
no. It's, no.
How come there isn't it in place between our contract person and your health district?
When you were in charge of providing public health services, you didn't need an agreement.
Right.
But when you gave the Lake Health District those county public health services, which you did,
Right.
then you gave those to a taxing district to oversee. Before that taxing district can provide those services in another health taxing district, there has to be an agreement between the two districts, just like it does for mental health. Same thing. And so far, we've talked about it. Charlie has been to our meeting. We've had pretty expansive communication on it, but we, the two taxing districts, have not completed that agreement. Maybe a little encouragement from the board to say, hey, get on the ball, taxing districts, get your agreement, because we're not trying to raise Cain or anything, but make everybody aware that there does have to be these required agreements in place. And our required agreement states certain requirements from Lake Health District that are not being met. So how do we?
So you haven't signed because you have some requirements to sign on?
No, we just never got down to doing the paperwork on agreement to public health services. And one of the concerns that our board had in those discussions was Lake Health District has every kind of services, the full round, clear up to heart surgery. Well, if Lake Health District is going to be in charge of public health, what is there a limit on the services that public health providers would provide if they were representing Lake Health District? Where's the limit? Would it be the same services provided in our primary care facility? Or would it be the normal, what we've expected and enjoyed through all the years, the normal public health services we've had? So putting a limit on those and clarifying the services that would be provided was the discussions we had. But as far as I'm concerned, the discussions are over. We've just never done the paperwork. Just trying to make you aware that the paperwork is not in place.
And by that paperwork not being in place, what would you say that means to public health operations?
It would, yeah, and I'm assuming it would be a contract just like similar to the one I just gave.
But where that the two health districts, taxing districts, don't have that in place, and we're the public health authority, same as we're the mental health authority, that puts us as the board here in a unique situation. What does that really mean? Are we out of compliance, and will that jeopardize any funding that comes down to public health?
Well, we don't want to stop any funding for anything. So it's
Now we're aware that it's not in place, so now we have to follow up on this.
correct. A little pressure on the LDH would help us.
Pressure on the mental
LHD.
health authority and the public health authority to make sure we're in compliance.
Yeah.
As we're the ones that signed the contractual agreements for finances, revenue streams and all that, so.
See, you opened up a can of worm when you give a taxing district the obligation or authority to provide these services. It just brings in other requirements. This is part of the game.
Sure it does. appreciate what you said there, and I'll give a few reasons why it is working. Is because of we have more services on the ground. I've been here a long time, just like you say, Carl. I went through the Lutheran Community Service time. I went through the Army Behavior time. I went through the county operating time, and now we're contracting with the health district. And my own personal feelings are is where we're at today, but more services to our people. The people that need those services better. Can it be enhanced? Can these agreements and everything, they need to be worked out. This meeting today will work this out into a positive. But I want to make sure that I put forward that I believe and supportive of the services on the ground today are probably as much services and as good services as we've seen in a lot of years. Can it be better? Can there be some synergies that we're talking about today and everything? Yes, but we don't want to lose the fact that there is more of a presence in North Lake right now than there's ever been. And right here in the Lakeview area, there's also more of a presence. As funding, it all follows funding, just as you say. But I think and I believe that we're much better off today than when the county was running it, than whenever Army Behavior was running it, or Lutheran Community Service for services on the ground.
I would agree, we're much better off today. But and you're right, the way the money is funding dictates the services provided.
So if they move into your guys' facility and a patient comes in and is billed, does it go through the North Lake? Or does it continue on the lake? Because your contract says, all undertakings pertaining to this agreement shall be under the name of North Lake Health District and should be consistent with North Lake Health District's mission to provide quality, accessible health care to North Lake County. And so the billing would stay the same. They would just be in that building.
They would bill for their services.
Separate.
For hours.
Makes sense?
Yep.
So, well, you can go there, but. So, well, we're talking referrals.
I understand.
We're talking referrals and everything, and so North Lake Health Clinic, does all your referrals stay within Lake County, or does some of those go to Lapine, Bend, Deschutes?
Oh, our service area is Central Oregon. You know, are the referrals from primary care there, they go to Lapine and Bend, most normally. On occasion, I think maybe there might be a referral here for somebody that has a connection with a provider in this area. But, you know, 99%, we go the other direction. But it's through referrals, but if someone is referred for mental health services in the north end of the county, which is basically what we're talking about, we think with the mental health dollars paying for the providers in the north end of the clinic, that the services ought to be provided there. Pretty simple. So anyway, that's mostly what I had. It's mostly why we came. But Marie's got something else you'd like to convey to you, or whatever. It's so if anybody's got any further questions on that, oh, I might mention one thing. There's a Outback Strong grant dollars. We had a meeting with Francie Winters, I believe, here a month or so ago, of probably about 20 of the stakeholders in the north end. And there needs to continue that or bring it to an end, there needs to be another meeting or two. And she was concerned if she would be able to provide those meetings or chair those meetings, because she didn't know whether she could get transportation dollars to be able to come to the north end. So I thought I'd pass that on to you so you guys could make sure she had at least a couple bucks so she could do her transportation. We've agreed to fund any of the other costs that she would have in having a continuation of her meeting, which was about opioid addiction in Lake County. It was with the school district, the health district, the EMTs, some of the other people in the north end of the county, so it was very worthwhile. She just doesn't know whether she has enough funding to be able to continue. And I think that it would be good for you guys to figure out some way to get her a couple bucks so she could have that funding.
Are you, I guess you're wanting to leverage special transportation dollars for that? There's guidelines and rules around.
In the rules that she's under, she's limited there. She got some okay for some transportation dollars to come up on her previous meeting, but she didn't know if she'd be able to do it again. So if you could ensure that you guys can come up with a couple bucks, we'll come up with the balance of it, and we'll continue that. My interest is being able to get all this information we can into the kids in the north end of the county, so we can avoid some of the stuff that's went on in the past. Anyway, anything else?
I have nothing. Board have any other questions?
So that, what I've said here doesn't get too misinterpreted. I'll leave you a copy of what I read.
Okay. So I do want to give, we do have some members out in the audience.
It's yours.
So and Jay, you worked on the contract and you keep us straight on our finances. Is there anything said today that you need a follow-up question or anything? Are you guys good?
No, I mean, I don't have anything to contribute. It'll just be interesting to see the negotiations between the two health districts.
Right.
You know, and that information will have to probably be shared once they make their agreements.
Sure.
I'd like to contribute. So we have new funding for transportation in Lake County. If you guys can't work out a way between yourselves to get her funding, she can always schedule a ride with Intercourt or the senior center. Because Lake County as a whole qualifies as low income, so we can't deny a ride to anyone. So public transportation is available to anyone in Lake County as long as they schedule it. We just don't have
No.
response.
What she's doing is under that Outback Strong grant
Yeah.
stuff, I believe, and so that's where the funding issue is. It's just kind of maybe a polite thing to do, to let her know that, hey, you know, you guys can come up with a couple bucks. So it's what she's doing is very worthwhile for Lake County.
Absolutely.
I would encourage that we all support that.
I just wanted to float that as an alternative.
Pardon?
I just wanted to propose that as an alternative.
Okay.
For travel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm from the examiner, do you have a copy of that contract?
Are you guys okay?
I gave the
We
copy
take,
I can
I
send it to you,
brought
Kevin.
Okay.
with Mark.
okay, we take a short break.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're gonna take about a
Is
5
it
or
from
10
the
minute
contract?
break.
Do you have any questions?
541-815-0805.
Yes.
You got a minute?
Thank you.
Charlie not been responsive to, well, you said he's been
Are
at
we in a
meetings
break?
and things like that. Has
Yeah, we're
he-
taking a 10-minute
He
break.
hasn't responded to your bill or anything, huh?
We'll come back to session with order. I'm sorry. And we have 2 things on the agenda for tomorrow. Would you please give us an update? Let's go with the hearing part first. Not that we're opening the hearing, just that we're gonna have one.
Yeah, we'll discuss it tomorrow, see that title. So, the landfill requires capital appropriation authority. They moved scales that we thought was gonna be complete by June 30th, and it wasn't. So there was ongoing work, costs need to be determined. Because they did not have a capital category budgeted, there has to be a public hearing process to create that category. And so we noticed it in the paper, it showed up in last week's paper, the hearing will be tomorrow at 10:10. After you allow for public comment, and take that into consideration, and then you can make a decision on the resolution that would create that capital category. The landfill right now can use contingency and savings in personnel services to meet that capital category requirement. We are only midway through the year, the fiscal year. It's possible, depending on equipment maintenance issues, other like unknown expenditures and also revenue streams at the landfill, it's possible another budget appropriation and resolution might be required by June 30th, but right now it's too early to tell. We're just really watching those operations closely. And as we know, there's changes that are occurring, so it's just kind of stay tuned, just watching that.
And this supplemental budget and the resolution doesn't have any overall impact, just moving dollars around within the budget.
Right.
Still balanced and no additional dollars.
No
coming in
additional
or-
expenditures, but that's why I provided the caveat that depending on future expenditures, but also looking at revenues, because it's possible they'll have revenues that may meet those expenditure requirements, and then that can occur. If not, it would be support from general fund to meet any kind of additional expenditures that are out of the norm right now. Really what I'm talking about is if there's another equipment failure.
Yeah.
So,
Unforeseen thing.
yes.
And yes, okay.
So that's, again, that we'll discuss all that tomorrow after we have the public comment period, public hearing. The second budget resolution that's before you today is also for a increasing capital expenditures, and this is in the special transportation fund. Melanie was able to receive a grant to help purchase a vehicle, and so we had software budgeted. That purchase is not necessarily going to occur, so we just need to move some of that money to the vehicle line and then bring in the state grant to help pay for the vehicle as well. So the reason, again, this one didn't have to be a supplemental budget. It already had a capital category budgeted, and then secondly, it's specific purpose grant dollars that make the expenditure happen. So we really don't have much room to do anything else other than what the grant requires. So we'll increase capital of $50,000 and then increase state resources $50,000. The overall grant is $55,000, but we already have some budget authority there. So we're just doing a budget change of $50,000.
Any questions? For me, I'm good.
Great, I'll be back here tomorrow.
Could I ask you a quick question on an unrelated topic? And real quick.
Well, that would be up to you guys, this is your meeting. So if you choose, then yes.
I wanna touch base with you about the SRS payments, the fact that we just got reauthorization for 2 years. Was there a 5% reduction in that funding?
No, so the language I saw Jonathan Sheffield send out, I wanna say he sent it out on Friday. Currently, that language did not include a 5% reduction, so I'm thinking it might stay just at last year's level.
Okay,
And so for 2 years, it'll be that same amount both years.
great.
I wanna confirm something though. Is it just language in the omnibus spending bill that the spending bill hasn't passed yet?
My understanding, and so when I got Jonathan Sheffield's email from you, I passed it on to the board to let them know that we had full funding, but then I also just got another email from Susan Morgan at AOC, and she says a reauthorization of SRS for 2 years, 2019 and 2020, with a 5% reduction in funding has passed the House and will be headed for a vote in the Senate this evening. All amendments to the program have been stripped out of the bill. Warrant vote is.
So I wonder if there was an amendment about keeping the same level of funding, and so if they stripped that out. So Jonathan's email said, once it goes through, they will provide a full fiscal impact statement to everybody once it actually passes. Initially, the language for the reduction was taken, either removed or language was inserted to reinstate that same level of funding.
Got it.
So I guess we need to stay tuned. I was
Yeah, it
excited
sounds
that the 5% was not occurring.
I know, and that's what it sounded like. It was fully funded. But now I'm getting this email as of just a little while ago, half hour ago.
Okay.
Susan Morgan writes and she says that it's been reauthorized. A reauthorization of the SRS for 2 years is with a 5% reduction in the funding. And it has passed the House and will be headed for the Senate this evening. So it
I'll do
hasn't
some
happened.
What would a 5% reduction be for us about?
So I think we got about 1.2 in the road department, right?
Yeah.
So 5% of that, you know,
52,000.
Still.
what we budgeted
but
this
the
year for
thing is-
forest receipts was 230,000.
Got it.
So meaning 1.1 million is,
Yeah, and
Amazing.
and we're guaranteed it for 2 years. We thought we might not even get it.
Yeah, I know, I just, but I almost feel like sometimes that's used as a ploy, to make everyone think that they're not gonna get anything, and then when they get something, we're all sitting there happy. But in the end, it's like, well, why the heck couldn't we fully fund it? I guess that's what I struggle with sometimes when I see that.
and you've only been here how long?
A year.
And we've heard this for literally 20 years now.
So,
I think
I'm right, okay,
Yeah,
alright,
yeah, I mean-
I'm glad I know all of this.
I think
Okay.
it's the political machine back
I
there,
understand.
and when they can pass a 2-year and get it through, they're like, okay, that is a victory. And I think that's the reason why we have to be so supportive of Wyden's endowment fund.
Yeah.
Because it gets us off the political grind
Got it.
every single year in either omnibus spending bills or
Right.
continuing resolutions or whatever it is that they choose to try and operate our great country under. They really need to get both PILT and secure rural schools out of the grind.
cycle.
Yep,
Yeah.
and so Wyden's proposal, you know, when we had to pull it back out of the judicial committee because it was creating a whole new like federal, almost like a federal bank in essence.
Yeah.
Like, okay, pull that back out and now try something else to get to another committee to go. I think the iron still ought to pass that.
This is just really good news exactly for what you're saying, is because that gives time for Wyden permanent funding solution to be pushed for as much as it can. And you nailed it, what we have for years, James, but this year it's a little bit better because we've had the years whenever it's way past the time frame.
Yeah.
We don't think we're gonna get any funding whatsoever. The positive about it is reduced amount, but in Oregon, we've started on the gas and registration taxes went up, that's taken up some of that slack. Where for our road department, where that the secure rules and school amount has fallen, some state funding has come up a little bit, help a little bit, I looked at Ann when he was talking and thinking back to all the years that, you know, it goes with the PILT too. I mean,
Yeah.
2001 or 2002, the PILT fly-in at Washington DC with NATO, it was the same things going on then. That we as counties have spent hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars over my time. Counties, all western states going lobbying for that. Is the amount of money that we spend lobbying on that, or whatever group we belong to, and the next group that want us to belong to, and on and on. If they just permanently fund those, everybody can put their energy towards other things.
I heard something, I mean, this, I guess,
We open the door, go ahead.
yeah. It has been such a lobbying effort for so many years. There is a lot of money in the lobbying groups now.
Yeah.
They almost, I hate to say it this way, it almost defeats their purpose if there is permanent funding
Correct.
passed.
Right.
In fact, I feel like now we're fighting against that just
We're
as
fighting
much.
against the monster we created.
Yes, just as much against
Because they're trying to justify their existence.
Exactly,
And if
and there
we
is quite
suddenly
a few
are-
groups, if you
correct.
look at it, there's quite a few groups that have made it, literally made a living for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, I
On this
shouldn't
exact
go here,
issue.
but you got NACO, you got AOC, and in Oregon, you got the Eastern Oregon
Yes.
Alliance. all paying dues for basically a lobbyist.
Yep.
And whenever we have NACO, which is our strongest presence to lobby and fight for this at a national level, but we just keep doling out money and it getting to exactly, I agree with you, is there's lobbyists making a living off of all these subgroups and everything, and they're not even really talking to each other.
Well, and I hate to see it this way, but they don't have a vested interest in solving the problem anymore. In fact, their vested interest is to keep going back there and banging the drum.
And convince us that the sky is falling every year.
Yes. So I mean, I think we have, through years done really well for ourselves as a county, talking to our legislators, to NACO. I think we've made a difference just on our own.
You're being very humble. I know we've made a difference, and part of that making a difference was getting you and Dan Shan to some key places to have maybe not the traditional lobbyist view of this is what it is, and I know you're a very humble person, but I know that as a board, we pushed hard for that, and it made a difference. We've seen a big difference, and that if you're a congressman or senator and you have Eastern Oregon Alliance, you have AOC, and you have NACO all coming to you about pills or whatever, and they're all three saying something a little bit different. And then we bring in a different view as we're not lobbyists, this is a matter of fact of way it sort of works. And it made a difference, it made a big difference. So kudos. I know you weren't asking for those, but it was a big difference.
But I think very good news that it's in the bill right now. I'm glad the House passed it. I think the Senate was already on board, so it sounds like maybe we'll get confirmation on all of that tonight.
Yeah, I just
And
wanted to
then-
follow up with you on that and just to kind of.
I'll do some research. I wanna do some research, cause I was going off of Jonathan Shuffield's previous email that said it was removed. Maybe it got removed in the Senate's version, and so we haven't, in fact, that could be. So it might have been removed
Well,
in the Senate version, and they'll figure all of that out.
I'm forwarding you the email,
Okay,
so you'll have Susan Morgan's email.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
So, nothing else to come before us, I don't believe. At 11 minutes after 2, we will adjourn. Back tomorrow.